Welcome everyone to the 142nd edition of the Nuthouse podcast brought to you by boxingsalem.com. I'm your host Andy Patterson. With me today I've got Adam Smith, Kurt Ward, Paul Webb, Alex Morris, Dave the Hater Lowback, Paul, who else have I missed out? This new setup's actually kind of fucking me up. Who have I missed out? Steve maybe I think it was. Anyways, marathon weekend guys of boxing obviously to kind of get ourselves through. But the main talking point, I suppose, would need to be the fight. Adam, we've got to stop saying that shit, mate. Honest to God. Floyd Mayweather made it 49-0 with a sparring-like performance against Andre Berto, allegedly. I didn't watch it. I haven't even watched none of it. I don't think I even watched it for a few weeks, I don't think. I set alarm for 2 o'clock in the morning and I didn't wake up until 5:30, so I proceeded to trot off to bed, but I've got it in good authority. The fight went as predicted. Floyd apparently gave the fans what they always wanted, and that was nothing really. He just basically ran about the ring for what I hear. He ran about the ring, didn't engage, and then ran out the building with 32 million in his skyrocket. That being the case, Kurt, give me any positives from last night's fight in the main event with Floyd Mayweather and Andre Berto.
Well, he announced his retirement in the ring afterwards. That's the biggest positive, I imagine. But no, it was an absolute shitfest. I mean, the crowd was quiet as anything. In fact, they got out their seats during the 8th round when Floyd did a little shuffle. They seemed to get excited at that because there was nothing else to do. I mean, Berto was as useless as we all said he was going to be. I mean, what could he do? He tried his best. He tried to land punches, but he's just not good enough. And I said last week, I thought this would be a good fight because Floyd would land whatever he wanted to. If he wanted to, plant his feet and land whatever shot he wanted to, he would. But he wasn't interested. To me, it just seemed like it was Floyd giving his mate an easy payday and Floyd getting through his last fight as easy as possible without taking any risks whatsoever, pity-patting his way to an easy victory. And it was just, it was absolute garbage. I mean, I think a lot of fans cheered him because they suspect it's the last time they ever see him in the ring. But it was an awful fight. I felt. It was a complete mismatch. Floyd could do whatever he wanted to Berto. Berto could not win the fight, how I could see it. And if you watched 1 minute of round one, you didn't need to watch the rest of the fight. It was just the same thing over and over again. And yeah, it's the onus is on Berto to try and change it because Floyd will do what he has always done. But when he said it was his last fight and he wanted to entertain, he said, Pacquiao didn't come to fight and he wants to make up for that. I thought, well, you got a guy who's going to come forward, no head movement, going to be easy to hit. We all know how accurate Floyd is. He just wasn't interested. It was just a jab, a few left hooks. It was just absolutely boring. I watched it this morning. I never watched it live. I watched it this morning, and I skipped through a few rounds because it was just so dull. And like I said, we all know Floyd is the best at what he does, but I'm glad he's retired, and I hope he stays in retirement.
Well, I take it the thing is, Dave, I mean, I know you're a big Mayweather hater, but, as Kurt says, Berto needed to do something there last night to change it up. Was there anything he could have done there last night to change it up? I mean, Mayweather saying he was tough, come forward, good chin, great heart, it was a good fight. What have I missed?
Yeah, Floyd talked him up, and it was like they were mates during the fight. I mean, they were talking during the fight. Apparently, afterward, Berto said he was asking Floyd to go out to dinner afterwards. So, I mean, how serious were either one of these guys taking this farce? We all knew the fight was going to be bad and a mismatch, but like watching it, I was like, I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I mean, it's just a lot of clinching, a lot of grappling. Berto jabbing over Floyd's head well after he has already dodged it, like doubling and tripling the jab into thin air. I mean, it was a joke. So I'm very thankful Floyd's getting out of the sport, and a lot of people I've seen have questioned that point of view, saying why would you want the so-called best of his era to leave the sport of boxing? Don't you want to watch more classical, beautiful boxing displays? No, I don't, because I think Floyd is a big part of what's wrong with the sport. I think he's gone a long way towards making this about money and avoiding the toughest challenges. He's admitted that he cherry-picked his fights. He's often supported the idea that his health is more important than the fans and taking on challenges. He's decried former greats like Sugar Ray Leonard for taking fights at advanced ages, saying they shouldn't have taken the fight. That's just not the mark of a true great, in my opinion. I mean, no doubt Floyd is exceptionally skilled in the ring, defensive genius. You can't argue that. But has he ever once beaten a great fighter in their prime? No. Has he ever once been undisputed champion of a division? No. He's not on the level of the guys we typically associate as ATGs.
Paul, is Dave being a wee bit too harsh here? I mean, obviously we're going to get on to a wee bit of topic now, but his legacy, I mean, what kind of legacy is he leaving behind other than the fact that he is a defensive genius? He just isn't going to be remembered as that, an exciting fighter. And as a guy who just seems to I wouldn't say manipulated the sport, but he's actually got the right connections to help him do that and basically make the biggest amount of money possible without really giving much back in return, in all honesty.
Well, the problem is that Mayweather finds it all so easy, and unlike a lot of fighters who have more of a vicious streak in them, he doesn't feel any need to adjust what he's doing. I mean, he won that fight last night, he landed 57% of his punches. When he decided to throw, he very rarely missed. And to give Berto a bit of credit, Berto did land more shots than Manny Pacquiao did over 12 rounds, but it was a totally one-sided fight. Could Mayweather have got him out of there? Probably, and he should have done, but this is the same old saying from him. He shows no motivation to want to change his style. His legacy will be that he is he's top 3 defensive fighters of all time. You could certainly make a case for him being number 1. But from an overall point of view, yes, he's a top 10, top 15 potentially. You look at that sort of list, but he's never going to be regarded as the best because he never put it out there. He never went into a fight and actually delivered on what he said he was going to do. He would always just do enough to win. And
it was by accident. It was by accident.
And it's amazing when we have the likes of Andre Ward and Guillermo Rigondeaux, who are so disrespected throughout the sport in terms of the networks and everything else, that this man has managed to carve the career that he's had. He's been involved in the size of the fights that he's had. Tells you a lot about him from a marketing and from a business point of view. There is no equal to Floyd Mayweather. He's the biggest earning sportsman of all time. He is a phenomenon in that sense. But like most things with him, you just wonder what could have been if he'd have actually laid himself out on the line, actually tried to get a few guys out of there. There were better fights to be made. The 18 months he had off, he missed out on several good opportunities there. And last night pretty much summed up. Last night was, if you could sort of scale down his career into 36 minutes, it was last night. Easily dominating an opponent, winning on my scorecard every single round, 120-108. Never looking in trouble, never looking hurt, and never exciting anybody. I think that's pretty much what Floyd delivered his whole career.
Steve, we've been too harsh and too negative on Mr. Mayweather. Has he been a joy and a revelation to watch in the sport, or have we just, as we're saying, just been too harsh and not really enjoying his brilliance?
I would never accuse the Asylum members of being too harsh or too negative, Andy, so I'm going to just put that one to bed straight away. But I think, personally, I feel bad saying this even, I don't know why, but I'm not going to be sorry to see the back of Mayweather if he does jack it in now, because his style, I can appreciate the way he boxes, the way he does. He's a defensive genius, as Paul said. He's a phenomenal athlete. People don't see the amount of hard work and dedication he puts in the gym. The guy
dedication.
He's just a beast. He's always training hard.
Steve. If you don't chant it, it doesn't mean the same thing.
He's such a skilled guy, but I'd love to see him just put it on the line, take that little risk. Last night there was so much clinching, so many elbows going in, so much grabbing. It was just hard to watch. He was so far superior to Berto. I'll give Berto his credit. I thought he came in and he had a good go. He tried to push Floyd back, but he just wasn't able to close the distance. And he did throw punches where a lot of Floyd opponents haven't been able to throw punches. They've been just mesmerised by the snake charmer. Berto did try to have a go, but he didn't have the tools to be able to beat Mayweather or even push him close, which we knew before the fight. But I just think Floyd, I don't blame him for not taking risks in and out of the ring, but I won't be sorry to see him go. The new breed, the likes of your Kovalevs, your Golovkins, these type of guys who are coming along, I just enjoy watching them more. There's more excitement, more action, more energy. Floyd, for all his skills, fantastically talented fighter, but no, great career. Well done, Floyd. You've made your money. Off you go into the sunset. We'll move on. I'll just move on now.
Yeah, I agree with the whole philosophy of just simply moving on. Although I see it for a different reason, because as somebody who appreciates just good boxing skill, even if the performance isn't necessarily pretty to watch. Like, I mean, Andre Ward is a great fighter, but he's also ugly to watch very often. We had a lot of greats through the years who have not been great to watch. Carlos Monzon, and who was that other guy? That Henry Greb, right? Yeah, he was allegedly really bad to watch.
Harry Grip.
Yeah. These guys, you can't really hold it against them if what they're doing works. What I do hold against Floyd is that he simply cherry-picked his way through pretty much his entire career, 140 and above, I would say. He finally did fight Pacquiao, yes, but he fought him at an advanced age. Pacquiao was clearly past his best. He fought Canelo, but it was at a catch weight. You know, Canelo was not that special in my opinion anyway, but still, that was a demanded fight. I just feel like Floyd's always had an angle, and the greatest fighters, even if they don't have a pretty style, they don't look for angles to like jip themselves into a undefeated record.
Oh, I will say to that though, when I talk about negatively towards Floyd, it's in terms of what he's done to excite the crowd. In terms of his achievements, I have no issue with. I mean, he's fought, what is it, 24 former or current world champions. He's fought like 16 in a row. He's gone through the weights. He's won legit titles at every weight class. If we talk about the amount of years that he's been fighting, and between us all, we'd probably name 2 or 3 guys that he hasn't fought that we'd like to have seen him fight. I mean, it's not like he's gone out of his way to duck every single fighter. There's always going to be someone else that he could have got in the ring with. He has achieved a phenomenal amount in terms of what he's done in the ring and what he's shown in terms of his skill set. It's just like you said, we want to see the Kovalevs and the Golovkins of the world. That's what boxing fans like to see. There's always room for technical fighters, and they will always have their players, whether it was a Pernell Whitaker or people like that. But when we're paying, especially in the American side, you guys that are paying $60, $70, you want to see a fight, in my opinion, and he doesn't deliver that.
And the thing is, if he's fighting a Pacquiao or a Canelo, you understand him fighting the way he does. You know, he wants to hit and don't get hit. He wants to take less risks and, you know, outbox these guys. But when you're fighting an Andre Berto, who is, you know, it's such a mismatch. I mean, if you put Kovalev with a guy who he's supposed to, you know, beat easily, he'll destroy him. Golovkin will do exactly the same. I mean, but he just seems to play with him like it's an amateur fight, and it's just so dull and boring. And you know you're going to get 12 rounds. And then afterwards, all the Floyd fanboys, they all say the same thing. Oh, he could have stopped him, but his hand was hurt. He could have stopped him if he'd planted his feet. He could have done it, but he never does. And it's, you know, you're always going to get a 12-round decision. And I think Floyd is an absolute genius because he fights absolutely dull for everyone to watch. You know, what he does, you can't knock. He's doing what wins him fights. He ain't taking any big shots or anything. And everyone moans about it afterwards. He makes $32 million like minimum, plus loads more, and then they all moan about it, and then they buy the next pay-per-view and the next one after that and the next one after that. And you've got guys like, as mentioned, Ward. You had Rigondeaux, someone, you know, one of the best fighters of the last 25 years, Pernell Whitaker, who fought, you know, like Floyd, at the time got a lot of criticism for his defensive. Obviously, he was a great defensive fighter, but he wasn't earning anything near what Floyd's earning, and you know, it's just he's done incredibly well to make the money he has and, you know, become the star that he has, despite, you know, people not really enjoying watching his fights for entertainment purposes.
Adam, I know you're not big on the historical side of stuff, mate, but if you were forced to have a gun at your head, who would you rank Mayweather on the all-time great list?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of this earlier. I'd probably have him top 10, to be fair, but as you say, I'm not the most renowned historian on the podcast, but I was disappointed from start to finish. You lot have all covered the points. I wouldn't have got up last night if it wasn't for the undercard. That was the best Mayweather undercard I can remember, and I got up to watch them fights, but I fell asleep last night while it was on, you know, 5:20, got up at 2, fell asleep, and so I fell asleep for the Maidana fight after about 8 or 9 rounds. I still haven't seen those rounds that I missed. Not interested. And I fell asleep for about a round last night, and then started myself, woke up. But it's crap. It was crap. He was talking about going to go for the knockout. No, he didn't go for it at all. It was just poor, and you can't claim to be TBE and all this crap if you're just not knocking people out. Maybe I don't appreciate the street science as much as I should, but if you're not, his last legitimate knockout was Ricky Hatton in 2008. His inactivity has been substandard. I think he won. They were saying last night on the commentary, he won a world title in his 22nd fight. So he's had 26 fights since 1998. So that's 26 fights in 17 years. It's not even 1.5 a year, I don't think. It's just not good enough. I don't think he will retire, but I do agree with some of what you guys have said. Like Kurt, I won't miss him. I won't miss him at all.
And Alex, finally to you, mate. Final say on this before we move on to the other marathon list of fights we've got to discuss. But Floyd, he's pretty adamant he's going to retire, that he's gone and stuff like that now. But if he is going to come back, it does give him enough time, I suppose, to do what he's got to do, cycle and all that sort of stuff. But he had a lot of pressure going into that fight because there were a lot of outside the ring stuff going on. Allegations of illegal IV drips that are banned against the Mayweather code and stuff like that. But he dealt with it pretty well, so we've got to give Floyd credit for that.
Well, I wasn't really going to talk much about the fight itself. I mean, you've covered some of the basics. It was just a glorified sparring session, wasn't it? And none of us really expected anything to go wrong with Floyd. I mean, even if I don't know, he was outed as the biggest drugs cheat in the past 20 years or something, then it still wouldn't have affected his performance tonight, I don't think, or last night, should I say. He coasted his way through that fight, and on the point of Floyd's legacy and how he's going to go down and how he compares to other people, boxing these days, it's the way boxing is seen, in the public view. I think boxing is obviously not as popular as it once was, as popular as during when we had the real greats, the Four Kings, and even 10, 15 years ago we had Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis, big heavyweights that were really just dominating the scene, and boxing was still relatively popular then. Obviously it's a mass decline now. There's hardly anyone interested, and they're only interested in the big name fighters, and it's become a sort of deception game. All of it is just a big deception. It's what you can sell, it's what you can get away with, and Mayweather seems to have become the master of that, and he seems to have understood that. He seems to know that it's about selling something that's false, selling something that's rubbish as something that's good, and what he had to sell to the the casual public, because that's what the majority of boxing fans, in quotation marks, boxing fans, casuals, that's what they were. They were interested in seeing him lose. They were and he understood that. So what he had to do was take these fighters who he knew he was better than. He was better than the majority of them. Well, he was better than all of them. That's the point of it, isn't it? And he had to sell it as being, a relevant fight. He had to sell it as being an important fight while fitting in with his, oftentimes cherry-picking agenda, and he did that. He was a master of that, and that is the plan now. It's spread across to all other promoters, and over here we've got Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren doing the exact same thing now, trying to sell us absolute dog shit as more than it actually is. And I think that Floyd, since has actually mastered that. I think that his moving on, his passing on, it can only be a good thing, and hopefully moving on from that we start getting back to a position where we're getting better fights, because it doesn't wash with the public. If the public are knowledgeable and they aren't thick and they aren't ignorant, then they understand the sport a lot better, and they're not going to accept shite. The Pacquiao fight, it sold so well because people were ignorant. Most people knew it was going to be shite, but it sold in its droves because people thought it was going to be the fight of the century. It was going to be fucking bombs away, brilliant. To the casual mind, that's what they expected. You ask anyone who doesn't watch boxing, they watch that fight, and it was a massive disappointment to them. And I think that is left a really bitter taste in people's mouths. And people accuse me of Pacquiao bias and that, but yeah, it was I found it an interesting fight. I enjoyed it because it was a tactical bout, and it was a very clinical, precise performance from Floyd, and it showed just how brilliant the man is. But unfortunately, I don't think he's good for the sport anymore. And I think that even with Heyman coming along with his PBC nonsense, and he's put on a lot of shit, it's hopefully he can push that to a more casual audience, bring in a lot more people. You know, I've always hated, you know, this pursuit of casuals for the sake of it, and exploitation of casuals is what I don't like, and that seems to be the route these days. It's not education of casuals to bring them in as fans, it's exploitation. And hopefully we move on from the exploitation into an era where things get better, and I think that the way we start with that is for Floyd to go.
Alex, I used to give Floyd a pass on the old. I used to agree with you guys about the cherry picking, but I think, you know, I've come around to agree with him, because although there is, you know, circumstances to everything, you know, Pacquiao's past his best, Canelo down to 152, whatever it was, etc. But I think when we go, you know, 20 years down the line, or even 10 years, we're going to look back and really he has fought most people. I think, and it's Andy who will probably say about Margarito, but really, is he in the same league as Cotto, Canelo, Pacquiao? You know, Mosley was past it, De La Hoya. He has fought most of the guys out there, so I think it's one of them. As time goes by, people will look on it more favourably, and he has pretty much faced everyone, despite the extenuating circumstances.
They will say he's fought everyone possibly around about his era and stuff like that. But then again, as I think it was Steve and Alex made some good points in his last convo there, but he just hasn't fought something. That was Dave. Sorry, he just hasn't fought anyone at the peak and at the prime and at their optimum weight. You know, you think about what he did with Canelo. You know, all the Floyd stands were going on about how Pacquiao would drag a fighter down in weight or drag them up in weight by a couple of pounds and stuff, and more about catch weights. So what does he do with Canelo? Drags him down 2 pounds. Floyd stands are saying, well, it's only 2 pounds. 2 pounds is a lot of weight if you're already on the limit as it is.
But what I'm saying is, Andy, is that that's going to... We all know them circumstances, but I think they're going to be easily forgotten as time goes by. So when the 2030 version of Adam Smith comes by, who's not paid much attention to the history and don't know the ins and outs of Hagler and Hearns, he knows the matches took place, he doesn't know the ins and outs of injuries or postponements or, you know, gloves or whatever, it will be looked on more favourably as time goes by.
Don't have any boys in, mate. Please, don't have any boys.
Okay. The thing is, they say that the weight didn't affect Canelo, yet these were the same people who were having bitch fits about Pacquiao and Cotto taking place at a catch weight. Pacquiao doesn't deserve any credit for making Cotto his bitch because he fought at 145, but fighting Canelo at 152, we've got to give Mayweather credit. He's going up there and taking on a young lion. The fact is, his biggest win and his best win is against Manny Pacquiao in a fight that he was having an IV for 24 hours before the fight. I don't give him any credit for that win now, sorry.
Yeah, well, there we go. I guess we'll discuss that in more detail later on and stuff. But I was just going to say, Adam, we're actually getting a request for you to do a remake of the Truman Show and start shadowboxing in the background there. Sorry, Dave.
Well, who's the request come from? Because I've got a Josh Doyle out there who does not like the shadow boxing. So tonight I'm doing ironing. As you can see, I've got the iron out.
Jimmy Patterson, I think it is.
We want him to do a Berto shoulder roll.
Right, I'll do your Berto shoulder roll if you want one.
Don't turn Chinese on me.
I don't know if I've got it in my locker though, to be honest. I'm not a shoulder roll man. I'm a high guard. You know,
I'll do a Berto impression. Just slump forward like a Walking Dead zombie. Show what Berto look like.
I can do an Orlando Celedo impression.
Aye, there we go. Talking about Orlando Celedo.
I can do a George Groves impression as well, fellas. I've got George Groves for you.
Anyways, while we're on the topic of, I've just muted him there, so he doesn't know anything about it.
Still going on.
So anyways, just moving on, as he mentions Orlando Celedo, actually it was a really, really good fight there last night between Celedo and Roman Martinez over 12 rounds. I think I had it 116, 112 or something like that for Celedo. So I don't know if it was that close a fight, guys, in order to try and get the draw in there, but I'll tell you one thing, Celedo, even though at 34 years old, put a lot into that fight in the first 9-10 rounds, and they seemed to tire badly, and Martinez really kind of put on the gas and stuff, but Martinez was taking a really good arse kicking in round 5 and round 9 specifically. It just shows you how hard and how fucking dedicated he is to this sport. How he makes 130 all this time and still keeps coming, takes his punches and keeps fighting back is unbelievable. But John, Alex, would you say it was a fair scorecard, mate, or did you have Celedo winning that fight quite widely?
I wasn't officially scoring it while I was watching it, but it was a Celedo win. I think I don't really see how you can. I thought that he was mostly dominating the fight. You know, I thought that Rocky came out really strongly in the championship rounds. Fuck knows how he got that second win, because I thought he was gone around the sort of. I think it was either the 5th or the 6th or the 7th round. Then you could just see he was absolutely shattered. He wanted to fucking go. I was even thinking, oh, here we go, Puerto Rican style. But no, somehow he mustered up some strength, and he started fighting back, and you know, he was just throwing absolute bombs himself. It was an excellent little fight, and again, you know, it's questionable how Celedo managed to maintain such an incredible pace throughout the entire fight, even taking, you know, bombs. Well, yeah, drugs, PEDs, etc. Let's be blatant about it. You know, he took some hellacious shots himself, and you know, just kept coming forward. That's the sort of fighter he is, though. And again, we saw the typical Celedo, you know, bollock punching. He just like a fucking sniffer dog. He goes straight for the bollocks, you know, winging away half the time. And unfortunately, Dracula, the ref, you know, is his usual useless self, unfortunately. But it didn't really mar the fight, I don't think, too much. I mean, it was that sort of rough and tumble. You know, sort of back and forth battle, and it was an excellent little fight to watch. And like I say, the fact that Martinez came back in the last couple of rounds probably helped him with the judges in that sense. You know, it helped sway their opinions a lot, and obviously helped him maintain the draw on the cards. I haven't seen the official scorecards yet, but I imagine that is where he really made the biggest difference. I thought the Celedo won. He definitely deserved to win. And, you know, I've got no qualms about seeing a trilogy.
Kurt, you're saying he's kind of suspicious, mate. I know what you're kind of getting at. I don't know if it was steroids or diuretics he got caught for the last time, but he put a lot of effort into that fight, and you kind of do start questioning a guy at 34 years old, had so many, was it 50 odd fights?
Style as well. That's the thing.
He's been in a few wars. You got to kind of start suggesting. Well, I wouldn't say suggest, but you got to just after what's come out this week.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I mean, there's no point being like totally putting your head in the sand and saying, "Oh no, there's no way he would cheat." No, he'd never do that. You know, we'd all like to believe that, but in reality, we're not. It's not true. I mean, obviously you can't prove anyone's doing it, but to me, when you've got a fighter like Orlando Celedo, who I think he beat Robert Guerrero, but the result was changed, I believe, to a no contest. I think it was a diuretic or whatever it was. When you've got a guy who's been a professional for 20 odd years of his life, and he's got about 13 losses. His style is obviously what it is. He comes forward, he takes shots, he takes a lot of punishment, and his style is basically to outwill the other guy. You know, and he's still going strong now, and he's still taking big shots and coming forward. His stamina's still on point. I mean, he's great to watch, and I really like him, and he's a great advert for the sport because he's to show that a loss doesn't mean the end of your career. He's got, I think, 13 losses, and he's still going, and it's great. And you know, I hope. You know what I think isn't true, but I think he's very suspicious, to be honest. But you know, notwithstanding, it was a great fight, and two guys who just love going to war. I mean, Rocky started the fight using a bit of movement, you know, trying to use the ring, but it didn't really last long, and he got dragged into the fight, and that's what we all wanted to see. And the two guys just went hell for leather, and I thought Celedo deserved the victory, to be honest. I didn't see a draw, but you know, great fight, and like Adam said, I mean, for a Mayweather undercard, it was really entertaining.
I love Celedo. He's got no regard for rules in or out the ring. He's got no respect for reputations. Like you say, he's been making that weight for forever, really. Was the underdog going into this fight? I gave him 7 rounds to 5. Obviously, they had a knockdown each. I think the knockdown Celedo scored was definitely he had his foot on Martinez's foot, and then he got. I think Celedo got rocked again, you know, in the 4th, and I thought Martinez was going to put his foot down a little bit then, but then Celedo came back and rocked Martinez in the 5th. It was just toe throughout. I thought it was a cracking fight. Will they do a third fight? I don't know. I saw the Watson brothers knocking about with Kim Martinez, so I don't know which way they'll steer him, but
he's with Heyman.
I love Celedo.
They're talking about putting. Well, I think they were talking about a third fight up at lightweight, possibly. Steve, you know, I suppose, how did you score the fight, mate? Oh, no, you didn't really score the fights, but Martinez, man, you really got to hand it to that guy. I mean, he took a shellac in there last night and still kept coming and still kept himself in that fight. He's got a chin made of motherfucking granite.
Well, I didn't score this one because I have only made it up to round 7. There was that much boxing over the weekend. I could only make it to round 7. And I aspire to being a casual at the moment. I only made it up to round 7, but I'd picked Celedo to win last week. But then I changed my mind to Martinez during the week on the prediction thing. So every round I was sort of saying, oh, that was a good decision. No, the next round that was a bad decision, because it was just one of those fights so far from what I've seen. I know obviously it ended in a draw and that, but they're really well matched fighters. Celedo's turned into a really exciting fighter. Early on in his career, he wasn't as exciting. He was very negative with all the messing about, the headbutting, the low blows. But he's sort of a bit easier to hit now, and he seems to get hurt a little bit more. And he's definitely a good fighter, and these two could definitely do it again. I mean, it'd be something that I would certainly watch. So fair play to Celedo. He's one of these guys who just goes to show, as I always say, losses on the record. Who cares? At the end of the day, if someone's willing to fight, chuck him in there. Great fight.
Third fight, Paul.
Yeah, I'd watch that again. It was a cracking fight. I thought Celedo, on my cards, I sometimes never trust my scoring at 3:30 in the morning, but I had him quite wide. I think I had it 8 rounds to 4, obviously with the knockdown either side. I thought Celedo, I mean, it's a shame that we're in this position with certain fighters where we watch a performance and we just assume that it can't be a natural thing. It must have come from some sort of substance. I mean, Celedo threw, I think, over 1,000 punches in the 12 rounds. He was just, I mean, if you're a trainer in the opposite corner, it must be very difficult to prepare your fighter for that kind of relentless. And it's not just the relentless punches, it's the power behind those shots. I thought he was superb. I thought he deserved to get the nod. I thought the draw was a bit of a strange decision, but I'd happily see it again. But obviously, I think it would have to go up to 130 for Martinez's benefit. But this is, with these sort of fights, again, this isn't rocket science. You put two exciting fighters together, they'll generally give you a good fight. You put Celedo in with anyone these days, and he'll probably give you a good one. So, but I just felt he got a. I mean, it's not a robbery because everyone sees it different ways, but I couldn't make a case for Martinez winning 6 rounds of that fight.
No, I think one of the scorecards was 115, 112 or 113, I think it was, to Martinez. Dave, I mean, I know Series gets has got a reputation of being a dirty fighter, low blows and stuff, but he kept it pretty much clean there last night. Really did invest in that body with interest. I think at one point during the fight they put the show stats up, and I think he had body shots through 8 rounds. There was something like 60 punches to the fucking body, while Martinez had only managed to land 10. Frightening.
Yeah, I thought the body work really changed the course of the fight, and I actually had stopped scoring as well after
It forced Martinez to stand in front of him.
7 or 8, because I thought like he looked like it was over. I thought, well, Celedo's taking control of the fight. There's no possible way Martinez can get back into this. The question now is, does he even make it to the end? But somehow he did in the last 2 rounds. I do think Celedo clearly should have won that fight. I think it was like an 8-4 sort of fight. I didn't score the last couple rounds though. And the knockdown round where they both went down, the only one with a legitimate knockdown there was Martinez. So that could have been a 10-8 round and changed it up a bit. He also hurt Celedo in the following round, but then that was about as effective as he got. From there on, it was, I think, even in the last rounds, even though Martinez battled back, I think Celedo still probably took at least one of them. So it's just a shame that we had some piss poor judging to ruin that fight, because I think that Celedo should have won that, and then that sets up a trilogy, and I would definitely like to see the rubber match.
Alex, you want to add on to this, mate, or just jump on to the next fight?
Just jump on the next one. It was a good little fight, and people should watch it.
Yeah, definitely. So that being the case, mate, I'll let you lead with the George Groves Badou Jack fight. Now, obviously, Groves not happy about the scorecards. I don't know why, because I think he'd lost that fight pretty clearly. I think I had it by 6 or 7 points. I think to Jack. Some people had it closer, but I just felt, well, obviously the knockdown aside, I just don't think Groves, when he did start throwing punches, his jab was sometimes falling short. He's sometimes missing the punches. I think when Jack actually did land on him, it was more telling shots, more heavier shots. And I just think Groves, I don't know what it is with him. I just think I don't think he's good at the weight. I don't think he does the weight well, because anytime I see him on the scales, he looks like an AIDS victim. And then he's always struggling with stamina somewhere around about the 8th and 9th round. And obviously with Jack working the body there last night, it just took the air out of the tyres much, much quicker.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, I was pondering why, a lot of us expected Groves to just, we were all pretty much guilty of the fact that we expected Groves to go over there and just bomb him out. Really, we thought it was a bit of a, no, not, I wouldn't say a mismatch, but we thought it was we already knew the result. We knew what was going to happen, but the fact that he got floored in the first round and then. He shot straight back up, and you could see his legs weren't properly there. And I think that really took a massive knock to his confidence that he could be put down by this guy. And then from then on, I just think, like you say, he was beaten to the punch. The jab from Badou Jack was excellent. I thought it really kept Groves at bay. It really just made Groves a bit confused at times. He seemed really tense, and he seemed just really trying to get off that big right hand and maybe relying too much on it. And obviously it failed, and he kept getting tagged with right hands of his own, which he seemed really open to. The right hand down the middle was just, laughable the amount of times it landed on him. And again, once the fight ended, I was wondering what's Groves going to do? What is his issue at the moment with this weight? He seems that obviously he's too big for it. He's always incredibly drawn out. Apparently he blows up to 14 stone nearly between fights. He's a real sort of fat bastard between fights, and he has to really boil it down to make the weight. And you can see he's fucking, like you said, AIDS victim, fucking skeletal. He looks a mess. He looks like he's a fucking 40-year-old man in there. He was the younger man between him and Badou Jack, and he looked like he could be fucking Badou Jack's, creepy uncle from the other side of the family or something.
Did you not think that? I don't know if it's just my eyes, but do you not think that Jack looks slightly, more thicker and bigger than him actually? Because this is what I'm kind of thinking myself. I mean, Jack is slightly bigger than him at that weight. And Groves isn't a fucking small guy. I've met the guy. He's actually surprised at how tall he was and as to how thick he was. So he is draining himself down at that weight. I'm positive of it.
Oh yeah, Jack. I think he is a taller fighter, isn't he? And he just looked meatier, and he looked just bulkier at the weight. And I felt that he looked more comfortable at the weight, bizarrely as well. Even though he had to, obviously, I guess he doesn't balloon up as much as Groves, and that obviously takes the big toll on George on the night. Obviously, I think that affects his punch resistance. The way he fights as well, he's such a tense little fighter. He's always in that little prone stance with his right hand cocked, ready to fire away. And I think that just that little jittering about, ready to fire, is really just sapping his energy as well, and it's not helping him. And as you say, and a lot of other people know, he's just an 8-round fighter, it seems. It makes you wonder: was the first fight a bit of a fluke? Was he cobra'd in the second fight? I know at least one.
Yes.
Yeah, who has an answer to that. But I didn't think he won the fight either. I think Jack clearly won that by a couple of rounds. I don't know what. I mean, I've seen most people seem to agree with that point. A few spastics are claiming that Groves got robbed or whatever. Groves himself included in that, but. He's seriously got a lot of thinking to do about what he's going to do next. It's one to ponder, because can he move up in weight? I don't think he's got the punch resistance to do that, but maybe if he's not draining himself so much, he will get better punch resistance. He will have a better stamina, he'll have a better gas tank, as it were, and he'll do better at 175. But then again, at 175, he's dealing with 3 of the biggest punches in the entire sport. So it's a very difficult one for what Groves does, and the fact that Groves could not beat the easiest belt holder in the division at 168 is really worrying for him.
Dave.
Alex, I agree with you there. If he can't be beating, Badou Jack, then he's going to be struggling. I think he's probably going to have to look at a change of trainer, to be honest, isn't he? I thought it was reasonably close. I thought Jack looked solid. Jabbed quite well throughout. I thought he controlled the middle. Groves, as Alex said, wasted a lot of energy. I thought, fitting in and out. The knockdown cost him on my card. I thought they both won 6 rounds apiece, and the knockdown cost him. And I thought, Jack didn't really do much to put the pedal on the metal. He was clearly, spends too much time with Floyd Mayweather, because he don't ever put his foot down on the rare occasion he's got someone hurt, and neither did Jack. Obviously, it was early in the fight. Maybe Jack didn't want to gas himself, but I thought in the 8th and 9th, I thought Groves was ready to go. He looked gone. He looked knackered, to be honest. He looked all in, but again showed his grit and determination, to make it to the final round, and actually rallied in the 11th and 12th, I thought. But ultimately, Groves' power, defence, stamina just weren't good enough. where he goes from here, I don't know. I mean, I think he should come back, rebuild on the domestic scene, and give Kenny Anderson the rematch he deserves.
Dave, give me your thoughts on the scorecards there last night, mate. How close did you have it on the scorecard, more at the point?
Again, this was a fight where I sort of saw the momentum going one way at a certain point, so I stopped scoring. Probably a mistake, but I was doing other things. So I thought Jack had this fight. George looked like he was about to fall, but then he too had a rally in the last 3 rounds. And ultimately, it was a very close fight. I felt like it could have gone either way. There's certainly no excuse for Groves walking out of there like moaning that he's been robbed. That was just silly. Not quite as bad as Adrian Broner when he was crying, being led around by the security staff, but pretty sad. There's no reason for that. If I had to give it to someone, I'd probably give it to Jack. But I felt like he wasn't outboxing Groves in there. He was really just out athleting him, if that's a word. He just somehow he's suspiciously grown a new chin. Like he took good shots from Darrell. He took huge bombs from Groves last night too. And I think a lot of other fighters at that weight would not take those punches as well. So I think Groves is still a top guy at the weight, and I'd like to see him stick around.
Do we think that's a case of? Do we think that's a case of Jack having a better chin than we first thought, or Groves not having as much power?
It could be that he just got cold against Derek Edwards. It could be just that.
That's
it could be just that one-off.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, like it seemed like he was there to be hit for I don't know, and that didn't seem to be his style previously. It's almost like he's changed it up to be this like come forward heavy body puncher now, and that's not how I initially viewed Jack. I always thought he was more of a mover, more of a boxer, used his speed more. Maybe it's just the style he used for Groves because it was very effective. But I'd like to see Jack face Andre Ward next. I heard that he was calling out Ward prior to the fight. I think that's great, and I think they'll make it definitely. It'll be definitely be interesting to see how Ward deals with him. He certainly would deal with him, but it'd be interesting to see how Ward adapts. However, due to Heyman, it's likely we're just going to get Badou Jack versus Chavez Jr.
They mentioned Booty last night, and who was that? There was one more fighter they mentioned.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, it was Butte or Chavez Jr.
That was the one, Chavez Jr.
That's what's going to happen. It's going to be one of those two.
Yeah. Talking about Kurt, give me your take on it, mate. I mean, what next for Jack? But more at the point, does Groves go back down to domestic level? He'll think he's a wee bit above that level, I would imagine. So
I think
what's they're going to do with him? They need to do something with him because I don't know if he's maybe shot. He's just took too much out of himself after the Frotch fight. He's then recovered after that fight. I really don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Something's certainly amiss.
To me, he's a bit like Kevin Mitchell. He looks good, but then when he steps up, he's just not good enough. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think he had the best chance he's ever going to get in the first fight with Carl Froch. In the first 6 rounds, he had him, could have won that fight, messed it up. I think he got too greedy in that fight, and I just think no one's mentioned it yet, but the change of trainer to Paddy Fitzpatrick has not, in my opinion, worked out. I like Paddy, and I think obviously Groves gets on with him well. But I'm not sure. I mean, you can only go by the facts. I know people who like Paddy will defend him, but we can only go on the fact that he's had 5 fights for him now, and apart from the first 6 rounds against Carl Froch, he hasn't really impressed anyone. I don't think. Even in the fights with Brasse, which he won, and the Mama's Boy, he didn't look too good in them. And it could be a case of just not mentally being the same after the Carl Froch knockout. Maybe that's true, but you've gone in there with Badou Jack, who, he's a decent boxer. He's probably a better boxer than we actually thought, to be honest. But just a basic 1-2 from Jack, a jab and the right hand, and Groves couldn't deal with it. Now, I talked about Paddy then, but you can't lay all the criticism on him. I mean, he was telling Groves in the corner, double the jab up, keep your left hand up. Groves wasn't listening to him, and that's why I'm saying that maybe you should think about changing trainer, because he obviously, to me, he doesn't seem to respect the guy, what he's saying. When a trainer tells you something, You got to listen. Badu Jack had Eddie Mustafa Mohammed in his corner. You know he's going to command respect. Is the same true for George Groves? I don't really think so. And until he does, I think he's never going to reach the level that he should, because he's got the talent, but for whatever reason, he's too ragged. And Badu Jack looked a much better boxer in there. I don't think it was close at all. I think it was 116, 111 type fight. I think Jack just did the fundamentals better, and Groves was ragged. I think he didn't respect Jack. He went in there thinking he'd knock him out because of the Derek Edwards fight, and Jack just obviously looked a lot tougher than he thought, and was better than he thought. And I can't see how he can have any complaints. And now, he's lucky he's with the Salons, because there's still down the road that Arthur Abraham fight for him. There's always the DeGale fight maybe. Now he's gone with Heyman, it's a bit harder, but there's still that there for him. But he's going to have to go with his tail between his legs to Eddie Hearn to make that happen, and we all know he ain't going to want to do that.
I thought going into the fight that Groves was the puncher, but Jack last night wasn't troubled, I don't think, at 1 second of any round.
This would be the ideal time to get some of these Twitter questions out the road, so there's actually quite a few here pertaining to the Groves-Jack fight. Steve, you just chime in with your own thoughts about the fight if you want, mate, but one of the questions was asked here from who was War Fury. Andrew Lee Evans was asking, so who's ruined George Groves? Hibbert Foster, Cocknose, Paddy Fitzpatrick, or George Groves himself?
I don't blame Howard Foster necessarily, because Groves had the second chance. Froch, did he ruin him? I mean, I think Groves went beyond everyone's expectations in the first Froch fight, and he seems like a headstrong guy. I can't even blame Paddy Fitzpatrick for it, because it was the same with Adam Booth. I just think that Groves has his own ideas about things, and no matter what people are telling him in the corner, he's going to decide to do what he wants to do. I think that's just the way he works inside the ring and the way he operates his career outside of the ring. I think Groves isn't an elite fighter. He's belt holder level. He might beat some world-class guys. He might lose to some world-class guys. There's no shame in that. He's just not up there to that next level. I didn't think the fight was that close last night. I actually scored this one for a change, and I had it 116, 111 to Jack. I think he just landed all the meaningful punches. He worked well to the body, showed a good jab, and he was very compact and landing the concise shots. Beforehand, I thought that Groves would probably be winning like a 116, 112. Like Adam said, Jack didn't seem hurt by any of Groves' punches, even though Groves was supposedly the puncher. I think Jack's generally a solid guy. He's proven that, and he was just caught cold by Edwards. That can happen to anybody. The way I was scoring the fight, though, I always think to myself, am I getting this completely wrong here? Because I'm not watching it live, so are people agreeing with me? Box Nation seemed to have it a very close fight, whereas I didn't. They went back to the studio afterwards, and Steve Collins said that he had Groves a point ahead. Amir Khan said he had Groves 2 points ahead, but I think Khan just made his scorecard up on the spot. I don't think he'd even
the week nomination. That is.
I don't think he'd even been scoring the fight, to be honest. They caught him out the blue, and he just made something up. I don't think he had Groves 2 points.
You should have
ahead
knew then, Steve, with them two saying that they had Groves in front. You should have knew that your scorecard was right.
Well, John McKee actually had it 114, 113 to Groves.
Who did?
John McKee. He had it 140. He's the judge. He's an American judge.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Well, I mean, the fact I had it 116, 111 with one of the judges get a lot of slack, but I always honestly think to myself, is Groves going to get the 116, 111? Then I'm completely like a 5-point swing the other way. You just never know at the end of these fights. Some of the rounds are so close, you can almost see why it swings 4 points the other way. And give Groves his due, I really enjoyed his jab last night. He has a world-class jab, and I love a good jab, and he definitely has one. Whenever he landed it, he landed it really well, but he neglected the body. He didn't hit Jack's body at all. He threw a lot of punches out of range. I think he forced the action, but in an unintelligent manner. That arcing right hand, it was the same punch that he knocked Paul Smith out with. He kept throwing it time and again, and Jack was rolling it off the shoulder, and Groves was repeatedly throwing this sort of uppercut stroke hook, but it was falling short. He kept on hitting Jack's arms, but he kept on throwing it every round, and it wasn't working. He wasn't changing. He was doing the same things over again. He was throwing a lot of punches, but he was missing a lot. And I don't see any problem with it. I think Jack was the better man in there, and if they had a rematch, Groves could possibly win it. I think he's just that type of guy. Like I said at the beginning, he'll win some, lose some at world class, but he'll never take the step up to that next level. And if he fought a rematch with James DeGale, I don't have any doubt DeGale would win the rematch, and I think that towards the end of the fight, there's a chance DeGale could hurt Groves. Groves always looks like the type of guy who's one good punch away from being in a lot of trouble. Andy Lee has that look about him as well sometimes. You always think Groves, all of a sudden, he's going to get hurt.
I'd actually think the Gale would stop him in the rematch actually as well.
Yeah.
Paul, finally, just to close off the Groves chat, because we have got a lot of fights to get through, mate. I've got another question in here for Jerry Riley. It says, where does Groves go from here? Loser of fielding against Smith and back to Adam Booth?
He's not going back to Adam Booth, that's for certainty. I mean, that's just a closed door there. I think that relationship is irreparable. I think he does need a change of trainer, not because Paddy Fitzpatrick isn't capable. I think I tweeted it last night, I really enjoyed what he was telling him in the corner. He was giving him very clear, precise instructions when so many cornermen just shout nonsense and tell them we need to win this round without telling them what they need to do. I thought he was very precise and very clear.
Hunter, for example?
Yeah, Virgil Hunter, Floyd Mayweather Sr. I mean, not that Mayweather Sr. always has to do that much, but he doesn't actually give any real instruction. Paddy Fitzpatrick told him to double up the jab, keep the left hand high, keep circling to his right. He was giving him all the right stuff. What we don't get to see is what Groves does in training camp. So whether he's been training well, but he was in Big Bear for 8 weeks. He should have been. I found last night very, very frustrating to watch as a big George Groves fan in the past, and I'm not going to stop liking watching him now. It's just that he didn't do. I mean, I had it 115, 112, but Jack, I thought that was a fairly easy fight to score. Groves just didn't do enough, and it was very, very. It was just frustrating to watch because Badu Jack didn't excel himself. He kept it very simple. He stayed in the middle of the ring, just sat behind that jab and that right hand, and he was there to be beaten last night. Badu Jack was, and I just kept thinking about the James DeGale-Durrell fight, where Durrell, a bit like Badu Jack, was fighting every round at a very similar pace, and DeGale just knew what to do to win rounds, nick the last 30 seconds. And what summed it up for me, I know a lot of people had Groves win the last 2 rounds. I only had him winning 1, was the fact that he needed those rounds and he knew he needed them, and yet he didn't have it within himself to win them clearly. And that will always be against him now. He's had 3 opportunities at world level when a lot of fighters don't get that. In terms of his options going forward, to go back to the question, he's still got plenty. The problem is he thinks he won that fight. He sees himself as being not an elite on his own, but because of the fight with Carl Froch, he doesn't consider himself similar to a Callum Smith, a James DeGale. He thinks he is at level above, even though he lost the fights. But in Europe, he's got an obvious fight with Arthur Abraham. I think that's a fight he could potentially win. I think the fight with Callum Smith would be a great one to make, but obviously it's meaning dealing with Hearn. He's going to have to take a bit of a humble pie and realise he may not quite be the fighter he thinks he is, or the fighter we certainly thought he could be, and he needs to sort of have a little bit of a rebuild. But it's a gut no, it's because gutting, because I really thought he was going to do that, but he needed to be ahead at 6 rounds if he wasn't going to stop him, and he wasn't, and he always struggled from then on.
Also in that undercard, Johnny Gonzalez lost a 10-round majority decision against Jonathan Oquendo. Both fighters dropped actually, and Gonzalez is actually just showing that fragility again in roundabout when he takes a punch. He was dropped pretty heavily, and it was actually a pretty much decent fight. And I took it. That was actually on the recommendation of Mr. Morris here. Alex, you also mentioned Vanis Matarazzi and Ishii Smith was a decent enough fight. Just very briefly, mate, there was a wee takedown on that one.
Yeah, it was a good little fight. Obviously, when you conjure up either of those names on their own, you just think, fucking hell, I'm not watching any of their fights. And the fact that they were fighting each other was even more dreadful. I started only watching maybe into the 2nd or 3rd round because I was hearing everyone say, what a great little fight it was, how surprised they were. It was a good little fight. Ishii Smith getting knocked down twice and absolutely looked like he was almost dead in one of them, which was excellent. No, it was a good little back and forth fight. I think Vanis Matarazzi was just, he outboxed him. I think Ishii Smith kept trying to come forward and throw pretty wild hooks at times, but he just wasn't good enough. It's a good little fight. I suggest people watch it. Mostly if you just like seeing Ishii Smith get beaten up because he's a little arse-licking knobhead.
We lose Alex here.
No, that's me done.
Sorry, mate, I thought you cut out there pretty quick. That being the case, so just jump on the PBC card, guys. Now, Cornelius Bundridge stopped 3 rounds against Jermel Charlo. I think he was dropped twice actually in that fight. I haven't really seen it apart from the stoppage. And on the undercard, Marcus Brown stopped former champ Gabriel Campillo in 1 round after dropping him twice. So Campillo getting stopped in 1 round there is likely to see him now get the call to get stopped off Adonis Stevenson. But Kurt, Peter Fake Chocolate Quillen, pretty emphatic finish last night against Michael Zarafa. 5th round stoppage. If that was a 5th round, absolutely erased of their senses actually. Zarafa having to leave the ring on a stretcher. Tails there, mate, of the Rod Salka fight against Danny Garcia. Are we in dangerous territory here, seeing with the PBC bringing in some of these guys and some of these showcases that are just not really good enough to be hanging with some of these top end guys, and we could end up, we've almost seen it last time, but we could end up at some point getting a serious injury at some point.
Well, yeah, there's not much worse than a complete and utter mismatch, but we've actually seen something that is worse, a complete and utter mismatch by a guy who weighs in as a cruiserweight against a guy who's barely a middleweight. I mean, I've said it before, I want same day weigh-ins back. I want to see guys fighting each other that are in the same weight class. You know, someone who weighs 160 pound for 5 seconds on the scales, to me they're not a true middleweight, they're weight cheating, which I think last night was a 163 catch weight. The stripper that Quillen was fighting, you know, he'd probably done a gig on Friday night, he's gone straight onto the scales. Next day he comes in putting on a massive 5 pounds. I mean, after that was probably money tucked down his pants. Quillen comes in at what, 184 pounds? I mean, it's an absolute joke. Do they want to see someone killed? I mean, like I said, it reminded me, the fight it reminded me of was Arturo Gatti against Joey Gamache, when Gamache came in putting on about a pound or something, and Arturo Gatti came in at almost super middleweight, and he almost killed the guy, give him brain damage, and you know, it's just a joke. I mean, what was the point in that fight, first of all? And what was the point in just putting on all that weight against a guy who had no chance? It was just a joke, and Quillen's stock has gone so low now that people just laugh at him, but that's going to do him no good, and people are angry, and I think rightfully so. I mean, it's not Quillen's fault. He doesn't get to pick who his opponents are, but there's just no need for this now, and there's got to be something done about the weights and having guys weighing and not doing this cheating, because it's just unfair. I mean, that guy had no chance of winning. But with that kind of weight against him, his life was on the line. I mean, I've seen him on the stretcher. I just don't see the point of it. But knowing Al Heyman, he'll probably be back next week to fight one of the other Al Heyman chumps.
Yeah, he'll be the next Adonis Stevenson opponent.
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, I mean, they had a wee bit of WWE there last night after that fight, Dave, between Jacobs and Peter Quillen. Basically hyping up their fights at December. I think they'll be looking at be fighting each other and stuff, for a world title, shall we say. That's what they're claiming it is.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm just so over Quillen, and he's just a disgrace. The one thing that kept him even barely relevant as a middleweight was that belt. He dumped it to avoid the very threatening, dangerous Horobov, tried to get it back against what should have been an easy fight against Andy Lee, failed that. I mean, the guy's just crap, and if he's not going to fight anyone good, let's just not waste any more time talking about him. I do definitely agree with Kurt about the weigh-in things. I think we'll see better fights all around once we start. Well, I don't know if it's ever going to happen again, but should we start going back to same-day weigh-ins, I think we're going to see better fights all around. We're going to see guys at their natural weights, not rehydrating, hopefully not using IVs anymore. I think that's how they did it in the old days. They were at the top of their game then. They had their bodies in condition to go 15 rounds at a hard pace. You never see that shit anymore. But and the best fighters today are the guys who weigh in at their close to their walk-around weight, like Manny Pacquiao, Carl Froch, Floyd Mayweather. Although you wonder why he needed his IV if he weighs in at his walk-around weight, but that's another story.
It's hard to concentrate when the white Michael Jordan is just dunking and just throwing 3-point shots in the video.
Yeah, didn't get him started, man. Here he comes back. Here he comes. Fucking hell, I'll get a bit of feedback off this mic anyway. Paul, on you go, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I watched all this, and I was very, very angry while watching this fight, and it wasn't, me and Kurt have had this weight issue discussion God knows how many times, and we do see it slightly differently. For me, last night, the issue wasn't the fact that Peter Quillen rocked on 20 pounds, or whatever it was, 24 pounds, because we get that on lots of different promotions all around the world. You see fighters bulk up the weight. You listed a couple of examples there. We see it every night in every show. But it was the actual fight itself. Now, the PBC, they're very easy to criticise. They're a bit like Eddie Hearn. They stick themselves out in the window and they're there to be knocked down. And I've sort of laid back on it a little bit and I've given them a bit of a chance. Last night, well, Friday night, was it Friday night or Saturday? It was Saturday afternoon, wasn't it, their time? That fight was absolutely appalling. And Michael Zerafa, who is the number 5 ranked middleweight, not in the world, but in Australia, so sat behind the likes of Jared Fletcher and Les Sherrington. I mean, this guy shouldn't have been anywhere near him. And for all we may criticise Peter Quillen, he's still a world-class middleweight with a big punch. And with that weight on top, the fight was Garcia Salka has now become sort of the tagline for a terrible mismatch, and that is what it was. But the problem with these mismatches, like I say again, and with this sport, not to be negative, but he could have killed. He got killed last night. He ended up in the hospital with a concussion, and it was because he shouldn't be in with that kind of an opponent. Now, we see these journeymen and these Latvian guys come over, and it's okay when they're going 8 rounds of a Tony Bellew who doesn't have any power and can't actually damage the person. But Zerafa went in, and to be fair to the guy, he took an awful lot of punishment, an awful lot of shots, and he gave it a go as he should and as he thought he should have done. But the levels were so vast and so wide that you have to wonder, would that fight be sanctioned in certain places? The PBC, they've been guilty of it a lot recently, and it would be interesting to see what their fight strategy going forward is, because even the commentators were saying how poor it was and how the weight. I mean, Marv Albert, who's one of the old NBA commentators, said, his words are, "Why do we bother with weigh-ins?" That was his actual words on the telecast, because Quillen looked like a monster in comparison to him. Quillen is fighting within the rules. I don't mind that he puts that weight on because he's doing exactly what he's allowed to do, but the fact that he was in a fight that wasn't even remotely competitive from the onset of when it was announced was the issue. And like I said, this kind of crappy mismatches is what's going to get fighters severely injured or at worst killed, but severely injured is a possibility.
I noticed that the PBC Twitter announced that evening that, oh, we're happy to report so-and-so Michael Zerafa is out of the hospital and on his feet and all this shit. Like, if you're so happy that he's safe, why would you make that matchup in the first place?
Exactly, and that's the point, because you know what, fighters get injured in 50-50 matches. I mean, we saw, it's a slightly different example, but Dave Ryan pull up with that back injury in the middle of the fight. He was winning by miles. Injuries happen, but that wasn't an injury. That was a concussion sustained from a punch that he shouldn't have been taking. He shouldn't have been anywhere near that ring. And then for the PBC to come out, like you say, and say, oh, he's okay now, it's all right. Lou DiBella to be tweeting, you know, he's in the hospital and he's okay. He shouldn't have been there. Injuries happen, but you have to do, and it's a matchmaker's responsibility, and it's also the network. So the networks are being fed this free content. So you wonder how fussy they are being about the matches. If someone goes up to you and says, right, I'm going to give you this fight, not only is it free, I'm actually going to pay for you to put it on this channel, do you then start questioning the opposition for these opponents, like the Adonis Stevenson fight and like this Peter Quillen fight? You probably don't, but long term, no one would pay for these kind of matchups. I don't see, this is when we talk about the PBC in the past about what their long-term strategy is. It can't be fights like that, because who on earth, what network executive would pay money to see that?
Well, I think it says it all when Flores actually mentioned, you know, Peter Quillen's expected to win. So I think that just basically says it all. You know, I mean, I know it's a keep busy fighting journeyman type thing and stuff like that, but see, back in the day, you actually had better journeymans with better records who were actually even tougher tests for some of these so-called ex-champions or whatever. But anyway, that's enough of the gripes. I mean, as this, we've got another gripe about some of the fights or what happened last night in the O2 Arena in London. Start off with Dave Ryan, though, against John Wayne Hibbert. As you said, Paul, you know, Ryan clearly winning that fight out of the park, and then I felt sorry for him because I've been there myself, and during a sparring when my fucking back went, and I had to take a knee, and I just could not for the life of me get back up. I really don't know what's happened. It's maybe, I don't know if it's maybe like a ligament or something that's went, the muscles went, but well, I don't know, a fourth fight.
John Wayne Hibbert even said he'd never take that fourth fight. I mean, he was losing that badly, and I thought Ryan boxed really well. He was way up on my card, and he just literally he turned and he just said out loud, he just said, my back's gone, and he said it to the referee and he said it to Hibbert. So what does Hibbert? I mean, I've no real issue with the fact that Hibbert jumped on him and got him out of there and got the job finished. That's what he's trained to do and that's what he's meant to do. The excessive celebrations, as though he just done some massive turnaround and whatnot, was a bit over the top. I think a fourth fight would make perfect sense, but Hibbert said straight after the fight, he's not interested in that. He said, "I'll let him have 2-1." So I think that's the way it's gonna stay, which is a shame because I mean Dave Ryan, he's come from nowhere really the last couple of years. He's picked up some big wins and he's picked up some upsets and he's a quality fighter. Hopefully the injury's nothing too severe and he'll get back in quite quickly.
Dave Ryan.
Hibbert was ready to go. I thought
yeah,
Hibbert was ready to go.
Hibbert was ready to go. But Dave Ryan has really turned his career around, hasn't he? Brilliantly. I remember seeing him losing on an undercard to Stephen Hockeyan over 6 rounds on an undercard fight, and I never thought for the life of me he would end up where he is now on sort of primetime Sky fighting in these type of fights. But the way his back went reminded me of Nicky Cook. Was it Nicky Cook against
Ricky Burns?
Was it Ricky Burns? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think word had got out before that fight that Cook had problems with his back in the past and stuff. And I think the Ricky was stopping in the first round or something.
It was within about a minute.
Third round.
Yeah. It was all over because everyone knew ringside that he was knackered going in, but a bit like the Darren Barker hip situation, yeah, same sort of thing. But Ryan had no pre-existing injury, and you can almost see it. He sort of threw a punch and then
it was
turned.
Kind of clinch type thing. It was no kind of clinch. He just kind of like twisted into it instantly. Yeah.
It didn't look bad, but
I mean, them
obviously
celebrations were out of order, weren't they? Them celebrations were a bit out of order, but I thought Ryan was obviously winning. There's a few fighters around there now. They could point Hibbert towards Tommy Martin, in and around the weight Ricky Boylan. I know he lost Cassius Connor. They can point him in them directions, but I mean Hibbert's on the vulnerable list, straight on the vulnerable list. Hibbert's getting knocked out sometime soon, within his next 2 or 3 fights. Also on the card, Andy. Charlie Edwards. I think he's a bit of a knob, to be honest, but I thought he was decent. He was running too much for me, but he was running too much. But there was both being too cute for each other, as it were. They was both trying to be the cute boxer, and they want much landing for the first 5 or 6 rounds. But then I thought the last 3 or 4 rounds, I thought that Edwards kind of ran away with it a little bit, and I think it was only his 6th fight or 5th, so that's rather impressive. I know there ain't that much to go at down at them little weights, but that's rather impressive that he's managed an English title off 5 or 6 fights. Hopefully one of them or both of them can go on and batter Prince Patel at some stage.
I was surprised to hear that and I checked out Ed Robinson said that there is only 10 registered flyweights with the British Boxing Board of Control. So when Sky did their top 10, that was everybody. So if you're on that,
and 5 of those 10 aren't good enough to be ranked in Boxing Monthly. Boxing Monthly only rank 5, so the other 5 are obviously not even worthy of even printing the name.
Well, no, I mean Prince Patel was in at number 9, and that just goes to show how thin that division is. And I think Charlie Edwards is going to have the same problem that Cal Yafai did, the weight above, in trying to find good domestic fights. I think he's really good. There are very few options there. He could win a British title, but against who? And Louis Norman was probably one of the better flyweights in the country, and I thought he handled him quite easily.
Yeah.
Ian Butcher, someone like that. No, is he not flyweight? Wilson.
Butcher's wanting the fight. Yep, definitely. What we'll do is let's open this one up to Kurt, Alex, and Dave if he's won. Now Dillian White, 3rd round knockout against Brian Minto. Did take some punches, I suppose, but apparently carrying an injury, and then AJ just basically did what we expected him to do, and he laid Gary Cornish to rest. So guys, take it away. I mean, not really much you can actually say about these fights, but we are going to get the great pleasure of pay-per-view in December to watch these two duke it out.
Well, they hate each other. There's a rivalry there, so I mean, it has to be pay-per-view. That's the rules now. I mean, Dillian White, I think people have been a bit harsh on him. I think he had no respect for Brian Minto. He knew he couldn't do nothing about him. He didn't look too impressive. He just was right hand bum happy. He said he wanted to do a few rounds before the fight, but that was obviously not the case. He came out straight away swinging, just trying to get rid of him as quickly as possible. I mean, he's going to be an interesting fight for Joshua in the fact that he's definitely got the power to hurt Joshua, and he's going to go in there. I think believing that he can win. I don't think anyone who's fought Joshua so far really believes they can win. Gary Cornish, all respect to him, but he looked scared to me. He just was there for the payday. He got the payday, and he knew that he was going to get blown out early. I think he went for it, fair enough, but I think he knew that he was going to get caught early and gone. I think Dillian Whyte believes he can win, and I just don't see Joshua having as easy time with him as he's had so far. I think it's going to go longer than he's gone before. I still think Joshua will win by stoppage, but I don't know. I just think about Dillian Whyte. I think he definitely got the belief that he can do it, and I don't really take anything from the amateur fight. That was so long ago. They were both kids then. Joshua's definitely got the more talent. He's definitely improved the more. And just hope that, Dillian Whyte can give him some things to think about and give us a good fight. Whatever happens, we just want to see Joshua in more meaningful fights and test a little bit. They're already talking about Erkan Tepa in March should he beat Dillian Whyte, and that's another, I think, a really good fight because Tepa, whatever you say about him, he's such a strong guy, and he's just gonna go all out for the win as well, and he'll have the belief that he can do what he did today with Bryce to Anthony Joshua. So I think over the next 6 months or so, I think we're gonna find out a lot more about Anthony Joshua, to be honest.
Definitely. Alex and Dave, you want to weigh in with that? Or are you just happy with that?
It was terrible. It was a horrible show, and the way they hyped that up was just ridiculous. I mean, even Gary Cornish's promoter, Kelly Maloney, didn't seem to think he had a chance. I tweeted her because she was tweeting about being at some show with two of her younger fighters. I guess I don't know who they were, and I said, "You're not going to be with Gary Cornish," and she said, "Oh, he has his manager and his trainer. My younger guys need me more." So I mean, even she didn't even want to be there to see that. Who would?
I thought that I'm surprised no one's mentioned it yet. White got caught with quite a few shots.
I mentioned it at the start. If you'd listened to me,
I do apologise. I was too busy shooting hoops. But no, but I'm going to give him a pass on him getting caught with shots because he was obviously Minto was a reasonably late replacement. He didn't really offer much in way of danger in White with his power, and he was obviously quite a lot shorter than White, so he was punching down to him. So I'm going to give him a pass. I think by the time we do get to December, we'll see a slightly different Dillian Whyte, but obviously we're going to get onto the big guy in a minute, and I'm going to get all sorts of hate. But anyone else out there, I'm taking the limelight off Steve a little bit, but Brian Minto, have we ever seen him in the same room as Brian King?
Yeah. Well, Alex, I don't know if you want to chime in with the AJ chat, mate, but if you're not, then I'll just jump on to very briefly these other cards until we get through all these Twitter questions we've got to get.
It was one of the worst cards Hearns put on, and that's saying a lot after last week's.
The light was good, though.
Oh, the fucking Jesus Christ! The countdown was probably the most cringe-worthy thing I've ever seen. Especially, it's the sort of production that you expect on a Klitschko show, but the Klitschko's have actually done something with their lives and in their careers. Anthony Joshua's knocked over 13, 14 bin man, and now a joiner. I saw an excellent tweet saying that they could put a house together brilliantly with the opponents that Anthony Joshua's knocked out. They've got a fucking joiner, a plumber, a fucking bricklayer. It's just embarrassing now. And the fact that they did have all this commotion and the promotion and just shite for him, it seems like an absolute waste of money when you consider that. Well, it's not a waste of money, obviously, because it's selling out arenas to an extraordinary degree and outrage. And it goes back to the point that I was ranting on about at the beginning of the show: deception and abuse of ignorance. They're playing on the fact that no one knows any cunt is. You see the tweets afterwards of people saying, "Oh, this Gary Cornish, he was undefeated. He must be good. He was an excellent little fighter. He was undefeated. No one does that to an undefeated fighter." He was fucking awful. He was absolute dog shit. And people might say, "Oh, that's to no disrespect to Cornish," but he was absolute shite. Joshua, he's good. That's the thing about him. He is very good, but he's not done anything. He's not got the resume to back up all of the hype and all of the shite that's being pushed behind him. Of course, as a promoter, you want to promote your fighters, but it's the constant stream of fucking diarrhea from the Hearns' mouths, from Sky, and what's his name? Cornish's manager was saying it himself that
Tommy Gilmore.
Tommy Gilmore. Sorry, he was basically saying this wasn't the AJ and Cornish fight. It was the AJ and White show. That's all they were.
Yeah, but Alex, on that department, they was proven right because Gilmore's fighter who was talking up lasted 93 seconds.
Well, that's not the point.
Gilmore's issue was.
Well, it is kind of the point.
That what you said was essentially right. It was all based on about AJ and Dillian White about merging together and stuff. But I can understand Tommy Gilmore saying as well because nobody knew who Gary Cornish was. So if you've got this guy that you're promoting as the biggest thing to come out of Britain since I don't know, Frank Bruno, maybe Ricky Hatton or whatever, some of these heroes that people are getting pushed towards this, people's champion, so to speak. Cornish wasn't given a prayer, right? Okay, fair enough, but we didn't know nothing about him.
Yeah, but rightly so.
But okay,
rightly so. But then they try and turn it around and say he was his biggest test.
Exactly.
Not giving him any dues.
Nick Hollis said after that fight that was his biggest test on paper. Like, okay, well, what the fuck do we know about him? He's a fucking plumber, right? What else?
Thing is, though, they were never going to build. They were never going to bother building Cornish up. I mean, there's 2 points I want to make on this fight and the general Anthony Joshua situation. The first point was whenever I watch these fights and I'm doing all the tweets along with it, I usually sit on my own and watch it. I couldn't drag my friends to come around and sit and watch a Lee Selby or a James DeGale. I had a packed house last night. People want to watch this guy. Now, you can say that's because of the hype and everything else, but that's just a fact. People want to see him, and he's exciting. If you look at Facebook, to forget Twitter, things that your non-boxing friends are doing, and they're all talking about him, and he's exciting people. And earlier we spoke about Mayweather and how that image of the dull, negative fighter is bad for the sport, and here we've got someone who just goes out and bangs people away and around. The second point is, for me, my biggest frustration with Joshua, or the situation with Joshua, is that because people are talking about the hype, they're talking about what the Hearns are saying, they're talking about this, that, and the other, no one's actually talking about the technique of what the guy himself does. In the ring, and I've been fortunate to see him up close numerous times, and I'll always defend him when he gets criticised, because he does, from what I've seen as a heavyweight, he does everything well. Great footwork, great hand speed, sets himself, lets his shots go, knows how to put an opponent away when he's hurt, and yet he's been with very limited opposition, and we'll see what he can do when he's in with better opposition. But there's no reason to get frustrated about him. He'll blast Dillian White out in a couple of rounds. I thought Dillian White looked awful last night. I know it was a tune-up fight, but I thought he looked so wide open. And I think you listen to White talk about this fight. He knows he's not going to win. He knows he doesn't have a chance, but he's being paid to talk it up. You can dislike the fact that Sky are building this good guy, bad guy angle with this fight. I will go absolutely schizophrenic when they announce it's on pay-per-view, as I always do. But you cannot take away what the potential Joshua has, and forgetting the potential, just what he's showing so far. He's one of the best prospects I've seen in Britain. I can't even think of one where I've actually thought this guy could be that good. And people always compare him to David Price. It's different. David Price was banging people away, but he was doing it all with a powerful right hand. He wasn't showing that movement. He didn't look the part. His conditioning was nowhere near as good. And like I said, it comes across AJ fanboyish, but it's not a fanboy when you think someone's very good and they're showing you that they are.
Final word, mate.
I think it's difficult for the likes
Steve?
of me and Paul, whereby... Was that Steve?
Go ahead, Adam. I'll jump in after you.
So I do apologise. I think it's difficult for the likes of me and Paul, whereby we think that Anthony Joshua is good, but it is difficult to defend some of the things that have been done and said about him by Sky and his promoters.
No one doesn't
as
think
I've said all along, I thought...
Everyone thinks he's good.
Yeah.
Does anyone here think he's shit? No one thinks that.
No.
I think he could beat Vlad, because I don't think Vlad's shit. The division's just so thin. I think Joshua's very exciting. I think he's someone to watch in this division. Absolutely, I think he can beat.
It's really getting to a point now. It's really getting to a point where, fighting guys like Dillian White does nothing for him. All it does is it gets him out there to the mainstream, let him see him a wee bit more and stuff like that. I'm a big believer. If you're that good, you stick him in. Okay, I said it with Lomachenko, I said it with Rigondo. All these guys, if you've got the fucking talent, if you're banging people away, then you put him in with someone. So what I said to someone, I think it was Ian Lewis that got in touch with me last night. I mentioned either put him in with Povetkin or Bryant Jennings, see where he's at, because that's the kind of level you're talking about now with Joshua. I mean, I think he's ranked 3 with WBC or whatever it is. I mean, he's not going to learn nothing. I mean, someone mentioned to me last night, what about Manuel Char? I mean, fucking Manuel Char would get erased within fucking 2 rounds.
No.
I agree with what you're saying to a point, Andy. But I can also say the way I see it is, I don't blame them last night from a marketing and a business point of view.
No, I understand that, mate.
For making that fight with Cornish, right? I would rather see him in with an Areola or a Whack. I was going to say Char, but I'm a bit dubious about saying Char now because everyone else thinks that's a shit fight. But somebody like that to give him a test. But at the end of the day, if they can build a fight against a White, if they can sell something against a Cornish, and they're getting the place banged out the way they did last night, I don't,
Exactly.
can 100% see why. I mean, Cornish was useless. We knew he wasn't going to go past the 3rd round. He'd never beaten anyone in the top 200, as Dillian White said. His record's terrible. He went 10 rounds with Larry Olabamiro. That is the warning signs flashing there that he couldn't even put Larry away. Anybody worth their salt puts Larry away, but Cornish couldn't do it.
How much drugs was Larry on for that fight? 25?
Well, I mean, fair enough. But seriously, the angle, Joshua's English, Cornish is Scottish, big UK fight, he's undefeated. I can just totally see why they did it. I don't blame them for doing that. Why wouldn't you? If you were in the business, why wouldn't you make that fight last night? I can 100% understand that.
Well, here's a question that's coming from Tom H. Kurt. He's asking, were Mike Tyson's first 10 opponents worse or better than AJ's first 10?
They were roughly on par.
No, I think AJ's the better. I think Tyson fought a lot of shit as well. But I think
Tyson
I've
didn't
said
have a gold
before,
medal for a start.
I've said that I don't really have a problem as such with who Joshua's fought. I mean, I don't see the rush of him, to be honest. You know, but it's like they're telling us he can beat this guy, he can beat that guy. You know, Barry Hearn said no heavyweight in the world can go 3 rounds with him. When you're putting all these statements out there, I mean, was it Eddie who said he'd beat Tyson Fury right now, but he's not ready for him? I mean,
He said that last year. He said that last year.
This is the problem. I mean, if you take all their bullshit away, I don't see a problem with who he's fought. I just would like to see him go a few rounds. I don't want to see him having the Wilder effect where he's knocking out guys and never going rounds. But as Steve said, when they can sell out, you know, against Cornish, why would they stick him with anyone decent anytime soon?
Thing is that you're talking about Hearn's bullshit. You aren't talking. It's not like Anthony Joshua comes out in interviews and says that he could knock everybody out right now and he's ready for a world title shot. His promoters are selling him in the way that they feel they should. And do you know what? It's fucking working. I mean, obviously me and Adam, obviously, we're all quite big up on him in terms of his ability. We think he's good. He's a very good fighter. But people who don't watch boxing every week love this guy already. He's been sold brilliantly well. He's been marketed really well. That's not up for dispute. But it's the fact that we're talking about what Hearn is saying and what Barry Hearn. I mean, of course, he comes out with these ridiculous Larry Holmes quotes, and you know he'd beat everyone on the planet. You might genuinely believe that, but he's the one saying it. Joshua, to be fair to him, doesn't say a huge amount, doesn't look past fights. He just says, I'm going to do my best and hopefully knock him out, and then he goes out and knocks the guy out.
But they're all part of the same package for a start. Who the hell is echoing again? Mute shit. Yeah, the thing is, they're all part of the same package. That's the problem with it. When we talk about Heyman fighters, we blame Heyman for it, you know, for what happens to those fighters. And what my point is originally is, you know, when I was talking about deceiving the public, that's exactly what they're doing here. Joshua is a complete polar opposite of what Floyd's doing at the moment, or was doing, shall we say. He's knocking guys out left, right, and centre. Yeah, they're bin men, they're joiners, they're whatever. He's knocking them out. But again, you made the point that they're doing it through deception. They're not educating people. They're not telling people what he's doing. They're not telling him about his ability or his talent or anything like that. They're just saying he's going out there and blasting fuckers out. And it's not educating anyone, and it's not going to keep these fans here, because all he's doing is selling the Anthony Joshua product. He doesn't give a fuck about anything else. You know, sometimes you wonder if Hearn's got anyone else in his stable when Big AJ is on Sky all the time. It's embarrassing for them, and they should really be focusing on the whole thing, the whole package, bringing people in to love boxing, and not just this one fucking guy who's a unit and he bangs every cunt out. And it just sickens me, because it's it's not going to help boxing, in my opinion. It's going to put it on TV, but it's going to put it on pay-per-view. You're going to get more pay-per-views because of this guy, and that's a fact. As soon as he's on in December, that's it. He'll be pay-per-view for every single Anthony Joshua fight, no matter who he fights. And that's not helping the sport grow at all.
What's
They're
happening
not
with White
interested
Hands on
in the
his chin as
sport
well?
growing. They're interested in matchroom boxing growing.
Exactly.
Thing is, I think,
Matchroom boxing is growing.
but I think Alex hit the nail on the head there, where he talks about what they're going to do in terms of moving Joshua onto pay-per-view, because the heavyweight division, as we just talked, the money can be in Britain, and it can be in Europe. Eddie Hearn is starting now to focus on the fighters that he can make shows around in Britain, and he's starting to cut loose certain fighters who he knows inevitably he's going to lose to the States, and the Al Heyman situation. He will try and make a push with Brook, whether he can pull it off or not. But Joshua, he is the future of matchroom boxing in terms of their UK pay-per-view market, and also banging out 18,000 people at the O2 Arena.
It's about money. That's what it is. It's not about boxing. Because if you care about boxing and good talent, you'd be promoting Luke Campbell properly, not fucking giving AJ 67 million documentaries and Luke Campbell the one that we've seen of him. And Luke Campbell should be fucking knocking on the door at world level, and it's embarrassing the way they've treated him.
Well,
But it's also
I don't agree with that.
It's also a very British thing, though, to not push fight. I mean, when was the last, I mean, come on, historians on here, the last British guy who was pushed like we've seen Lomachenko and similar to a world title fight in, so let's say under 15 fights, let's say for that. I mean,
I think
it's just...
The push can pretty quick.
They did, but I mean,
look what happened there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. They're not. It's not the British promoters' thing to do to rush fighters. We won't the likes of Vidal and people like that who are going to be moved much quicker. We won't see that with the likes of Luke Campbell or any of them, and that's not an Eddie Hearn thing. That's also what Warren did, moving these fighters along at a pace to build them up for a whole career, and to make them as big as possible. They're not looking to rush, so we can sit there getting really pissed off watching, these 2012 Olympians from other countries winning world titles already, and we've got Anthony Ogogo sat around doing nothing, Luke Campbell fighting Tommy Coyle, and Joshua banging out joiners. But that's just the British way, it seems.
But what we have to remember is...
Wait, come on now, we're running way behind in time here. Cut final word on this.
Well, you mentioned Luke Campbell there. I think you don't even have to compare it, Josh, with a fellow Olympian. We haven't talked about him yet, but look at James McDonnell. The things that he's done has gone so under the radar, wouldn't be recognised by most people in the street. That's just the power of heavyweight boxing, and the fact that at the Anthony Joshua product, the fact is that he's such a big star, he can sell out against Gary Cornish. Everyone seems to love him. James McDonnell, his fight against Kameda wasn't even on live, and now his fight last week, he did another great job, and he goes under the radar. I mean, that's just, you can see, although I don't like it, you can see why Matchroom are doing what they're doing, because, people just love Anthony Joshua, and I just wonder how long before they put him in with someone any good, because do they need to?
And everyone's waiting for Klitschko to go over the hill anyway, so if they can build a couple of fake rivalries for another 12 months, sell the tickets, and take our pay-per-view money, or not ours, but some people's pay-per-view money, and then Klitschko, when he's on the wrong side of 40, that's when they make the move.
Right, very briefly we'll run through this. Friday night, Errol Spence handily dealt with Chris Van Heerden, and I'm actually glad to see that he stopped him, because if Spence is the truth that he says he is, then he had to be stopping guys like Van Heerden, and he did that. He delivered that really good pinpoint performance.
I think that was that the first time Van Heerden's been stopped? I thought that was the performance for the weekend, to be honest. I thought it was a great performance.
Adonis Stevenson stopped Tommy Karpensi. I think it was the third round. The least of the better. Two good left hands, and that was it. Bit meh. And Oscar Valdez basically turned Chris Avalos into a Black Hawk over Mogadishu by knocking him down and knocking him out. I think what round was that? Fifth round or something, I think it was. But did it in installments anyway, I know that much. And obviously the fight is what's been mentioned there. We've never got a chance to discuss it last week's show. But Nathan Lloyd Paul's asking the question here: with Big Nose Frotch retired, is Jimmy McDonald now Britain's pound for pound #1 after his great win last Sunday?
I think he's got to be in the consideration now. I mean, the only thing that hangs against him is he's beaten the same person twice. I think if he went and if he stepped up and beat someone like Quigg, or he fought any of the champions at that weight that he's in at the moment, he could certainly be the consideration. I think that the number one spot in Britain, taking Froch away, has always been sort of a battle between Kell Brook and Amir Khan. I think you could throw De Gale in the mix now, but McDonnell's had 2 very, very impressive performances, and rightly winning both fights, and it'll be interesting. I'm hoping they make the right move with him, but the next fight will be key for him. It'll be a big decision. Now, he's very as they all are, motivated by money. If the Scott Quigg fight is dangled to him with big cash, he'll take it. I just don't see him doing that, because I think the American money and the options he's got over there will always be his first pick. Whoever signs the biggest check will get McDonnell's next fight, but he's got to be considered. And to be fair, he still has a legit win now over Julio Cesar, which at the time people didn't really think much of, but that looks better and better as time's gone on.
But especially with that win that Sia had a couple of weeks back as well, I think it's a really good win. The McDonnell, obviously, I mean, as you say, he is well under the radar, but certainly not with the hardcore anyway. I think he gets his just dues and just props and stuff. But hopefully he does get the big money fights now, because he certainly has earned his corn, shall we say. He's been through the Commonwealth, British, European, world stage, the traditional way, shall we say.
He's improved a lot as well, and to go to Texas and do that twice, he definitely deserved the big fights, and I think we all wish him, well in the future, because he deserves it.
Coming up next is the Bellew of the Week award. So on the download portion of the podcast, this is where you'll hear the intro. Now, first one I've got up is Carol Froch. Now, as you know, Carol Froch does a weekly segment, shall we say, or a weekly article on the Sky Sports News website. Apparently, according to him anyway, Anthony Joshua faces his biggest test so far against Gary Cornish. So it wasn't just Nick Holland that was saying it as well, it was Mr. Froch. This guy goes under the name of Twitter called Ben Royale 11, and he says last night that the reason Anthony Joshua wins all the time is because he's a monster, not because he fights shit people all the time, for fuck's sake. And there's a response with someone laughing at him, and he comes back and he says, bear in mind I know fuck all about boxing. That other guy was 21-0 and he beat him in 90 seconds and he's got a gold medal. So that's
Right.
Ben.
He answered his own thing there. I know fuck all about boxing.
Yep. So Alex, you had quite a few kicking around, mate.
Yeah, Nick Halling gets one again during the talking and the build-up. I think it was during the White fight. Nick Halling said that Anthony Joshua has only lost once as an amateur, and that was to Dillian White, despite the fact that I believe Anthony Joshua's got 2 silver medals at various competitions in the amateurs.
Oh, it was interesting. You mentioned that. I'm going to also nominate Nick, what do you call him? Mario Ranello. Just when you mentioned that, Alex, about Nick Holland, Ranello says that George Groves has only been dropped off Carol Froch.
Lovely.
Kenny Anderson dropped him on his arse as well.
Yeah, got a few classics from the Box Nation feed as well of the Mayweather Berto fight. Obviously, we heard it. I mentioned of it earlier. After the Groves fight, Steve Collins had Groves up by 1 point, and Amir Khan had him up by 2.
That fucking suit, man.
That fucking suit.
Pyjamas, wasn't it?
Pajamas.
It looks like a spotted dick.
Yeah. Amir Khan talking about himself in the third person was also an absolute treat. Steve Collins said that he was talking about the possibility that Floyd should have been fighting Khan, and he said Floyd's going to be making 32 million against Andre Berto, but if he fought Amir Khan, he would be making 100 million.
Damn.
Yeah.
He's looking to lend a tenner off Amir, I think.
Apparently Amir also turned up to the Box Nation studio with a 12-man entourage. I don't think
Handed.
Amir rolls deep.
That's why he lost his Nando's card.
I'm your boss, deep me like.
I've got another one from Amir Khan. He's actually said it to Dan Rayfield that he isn't going to be fighting Provodnikov on November 7th. It's all bullshit. He's actually going to be sitting out the rest of the year because he's getting Pacquiao in March. So Bob Arum says.
Oh,
So May's 195.
which March is that? Is that March 2019?
Any other nominations?
Oh, there was another
Absolutely. Stephen Espinosa, right at the start of the Floyd Berto fight, or after a couple rounds, he tweets,
I've seen that.
well, Looks like the. Well, let me look up the tweet actually for the exact words.
Exact words, I think I've got it somewhere as well. He said, weird, doesn't seem like much of a mismatch now, so much for conventional wisdom, hashtag Mayweather Berto. Oh, he actually said Mayweather Berto, actually, believe it or not.
That's the guy who shot on the Golovkin-Monroe fight because of the betting odds, and yet what was Mayweather? 18-1 on or something?
Yep.
Exactly. Not to mention the Salka fight and all the rest of it.
Was Khan's suit worse than David Price's? Because I've not seen it.
Yeah, I mean, at least David Price could actually fill out into his suit. Amir Khan would actually be stoned to death just wearing it.
Can I? I've got my nomination. It's a multiple nomination for every time Floyd Mayweather was asked a question this week by absolutely anybody.
Push myself to the limits.
He is horrendous. I mean, there was an interview with Steve Gray, bless him, and he goes through this every time. Steve Gray said to him, Floyd, Serena Williams lost in a huge upset yesterday, one of the biggest upsets in tennis history. Do you see any relation between what happened to her and your fight on Saturday night, and does that go through your mind? Floyd Mayweather answered with, Serena Williams is a hell of a tennis player, probably one of the best of all time. That was his answer. And you know what? If you look at Gray actually, for the first time ever, got frustrated with him and just said, well, what about the question? Because Floyd looks in the distance, and he's got. It's as if he searches back in his brain like he's going through a filing cabinet and goes, right, what pre-prepared answer? It's been a great training camp.
I want to thank God.
We've got a great team. Yeah, I want to thank God, prayers and belief. It's a hell of a camp. And he's a tough fighter, tough warrior. And he seems to forget the fact that someone's asking him a question and he has to relate his answer to what he's been told. But that Serena Williams one, Steve Gray tried it twice, 2 days running, and Floyd failed to either understand the question or he wasn't listening. Oh, Jim Gray. I keep calling him Steve Gray. Who's Steve Gray?
That's the British ref, is it not?
Oh, God, not Steve Gray. No, anyway.
Well, I just think it's a lack of intelligence.
Well, the thing is,
it's ignorant.
He tries to come across all deep and meaningful and that, and really, he's just an illiterate clown.
Well, that's the problem. Is sometimes he's caught off. Sometimes when he answers a question genuinely, you're almost shocked by it. I sit back and okay, that was quite good, but you have to sort of catch him off guard to get a real answer off him. It's either a lack of intelligence, but for me, it just ranks of pure ignorance. He is not going to try. He's been trained in a way. He's not going to answer your question no matter what. He's only going to say what he wants to say, and it's a defensive mechanism.
He did. Box Nation got him sat down, and once he claimed it was the only UK one-on-one interview, and he said, "Oh yeah, thanks to Box Nation for all their support across the years. I just thought, yeah, what happened? What channel was you on May the 2nd, you prick."
That's why he won't come on the Nuthouse, because he knows that our questions are just too intimidating, and they just get the truth out of people.
Yeah.
Or we just make the truth up ourselves.
So, Steve, you get any nominations, mate?
No nominations.
No nominations.
I've got one more.
Okay,
there's a few more. Yeah.
Barry Hearn.
Yeah.
Well, Barry Hearn, what's he said?
Anthony Joshua. Let me just get the full quote. Obviously talking shy again. No heavyweight can go 3 rounds with Anthony Joshua.
Tremendous. Dave,
okay. So Floyd again. In his post-fight speech, I mean, really, it's been a weird week for him. His denial of the IV usage as anything illegal was very vague, and I don't think he actually wrote that himself, so it's hard to say. But so when he's finally making his retirement speech after the shitfest is over, he called his fans immaculate and thanked them profusely for supporting him all these years. How are you gonna act like your fans are so important to you now after serving them up this big pile of shit that nobody wanted?
Was it this week or last week when the Kell Brook fight got announced? I don't know if we did it last week when he tried to say Barnstormer, and he said Stormbarner. That's cool.
Yeah, that was great.
And the final nomination is because we're going back to Sunday. Dan Rayfield's Kameda McDonnell scorecard. I think if you gave that fight to Kameda by 8 rounds, you really should find another job.
Okay, so we've got Steve. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, sorry. Tim Bradley during the Valdez Avalos fight So Avalos is because Bradley was commentating, and if you'll notice, he's actually starting to talk like Teddy Atlas already with some of his analogies. But his opinion on Avalos after I think it was like the 4th round, Avalos was hurt, Avalos was tired, getting beat up a little bit, and Timmy's yelling, "They got to stop this fight! Come on, guys!" And then if I remember correctly, him against Provodnikov, he was in much worse shape in the first 2 rounds of that fight than Avalos, I think, ever reached in his fight with Valdez. So it's just a little bit of
I forgot about the
hypocrisy.
Avalos Valdez fight. I think I need to nominate myself for Bellew of the Week because I picked Avalos to beat at Valdez.
Did you see the knockout, mate? It was pretty emphatic, wasn't it? As I says, he'd been doing it in installments, that one. But, so we've got AJ, so I've got Carol Froch.
One more.
Hold on, I've got one as well.
Hell.
Go on.
I think this is the unbeatable one. Virgil Hunter comparing Mayweather Berto to Thriller in Manila. We all tuned in for the Thriller in Manila, and it was close. It was really close.
Well, I think we've got a winner out of that one. So Alex, don't even bother.
Deserves a nomination, surely.
We've got Virgil Hunter. I've just lost my list there. Virgil Hunter, Tim Bradley, Dan Raphael, Floyd Mayweather, Barry Hearn, Steve Espinoza, Ben Royal, Carol Froch, Nick Holland, Amir Khan, Steve Collins. I mean, it's jam-packed this week. So, Adam, who gets your vote?
This is one of the best weeks ever, to be fair. It's between Hall-in and Barry Hearn. I'm gonna go Hall-in, considering Sky are meant to be clued up on, Mr. Joshua there is the cash cow, and he thinks he only had 1 amateur loss. So Nick Hall-in, please.
Alex?
It's got to be Virgil, ain't it? Fucking hell. Completely forgot about that one.
Dave?
Virgil Hunter, his performance in the corner was something else.
Paul?
Espinoza, he's one of the most evil, horrible, despicable people in the sport, and that tweet
Slimy,
was just
horrible bastard.
Or he's presided over the destruction of Showtime as a respectable network, and force-fed us this Al Heyman shit that we have to deal with every week. And then to come out with that tweet saying how great's this fight, pretty much what he was saying, and you all got it wrong. What a despicable piece of toad shit.
So just before we actually get Steve's not a vote actually, but did anybody catch that cunt Custer talking? I think the only thing of that fight I watched was the weigh-in, and this motherfucker Custer's Brian Custer, his name is. He was trying to big up this fucking fight like it was the biggest fight in the world. He was growing about Andre Berto. He's been in some good fights. You need to remember he's a live underdog. I'm saying to myself, what shit or what fucking school of propaganda did this cunt go to? Joseph Goebbels' fucking high school or something like that? It's fucking terrible. Steve.
He's so annoying. He doesn't know anything about boxing, really, and his voice is just annoying too. He sucks. They're gonna need to get Brian Kenny back in there. I mean, Brian Kenny was a company man, but at least he knew the sport in some ways.
Steve, who gets your vote, mate?
Yeah, sorry, Dave. When you were saying he's shit and he sounds terrible and everything, I didn't know you were talking about me or Brian Custer there. But I'm going to go for Amir Khan. I know it was during the night, but turning up in your onesie and then trying to make up a scorecard on the hop, yeah, it's got to be Amir for me.
Oofed. Who else we got? Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give it Virgil, but I got to give him big respect. I mean, he was really trying to sell that fight, sell some more pay-per-views, and he pulled out a stunner with the, this could be as good as the Thriller in Manila. I mean, he said it with a straight face as well. So acting next for him as well after his training career.
So I believe I also heard him this week saying because he and Thurman had this little spat going, I guess, because Virgil said how he is made of glass and stuff. He said he better cut that ponytail, otherwise I'm gonna grab it and break his neck or something.
Yeah, Thurman threatened to chin him.
So I think it's unanimous, and Virgil Hunter, you are our Belly of the Week award winner, sir. So congratulations.
Thanks, baby.
Yeah. No problem, my darling.
You can do it, Andrew.
Again.
He's a good interview, Virgil Hunter. He's a very good interview, Virgil Hunter. I met him when he was over over at Froch Groves, but fucking hell, he's a.
You put you to sleep anyway, I tell you that much.
He does, like I said, he's got a lot to say, but he does it in a very slow, measured way.
Just don't take any fucking temazepam or anything like that, or diazepam, or you'll be fucking sleeping by the time he's finished saying what his name is.
But
Right.
him in the corner last night, it was like worse than Tim Lane. He was like, "You got this. It's so close."
Yeah, didn't he say Berto was like 1 round behind, and it was
2
like
rounds to
10?
go. He
He
said,
offered
he said,
absolutely
keep this
no
close now.
technical
It's
advice.
close. Don't mess it up now. It's close. Just go out there and keep pressuring him. No.
Aye.
Fuck's
Got an agreement made beforehand. Right, a couple more Twitter questions and then we'll cover the next weekend's fight. And just to let listeners know, during the week we're going to have a discussion in regards to the news that broke this week about Floyd Mayweather allegedly using an IV drip by either ways of hydration, flushing, cycling, or whatever you think it is. Legitimate points raised, legitimate points maybe not raised. Certain things, there's been some, there's been a pro, shall we say, a pro Mayweather article come out. Or I think the main thing here is that USADA have really been called out now. They really need to get something fixed out about this shit because, well, as I say, we'll discuss it in more detail during the week anyway. But just to let the listeners know, we will do a show, or maybe go on an hour, 2 hours, who knows. But I know there's some strong comments to be said and stuff. I know Alex is itching it at the bit, but we'll leave it just now anyway. That being the case, Danny Robson's asking the question, guys, do you think the PBC model will prevent the likes of Spence and Thurman from becoming pay-per-view stars?
Fuck pay-per-view. I hope it does.
Well, what about becoming a star then, Never mind the pay-per-view side of things, what about just becoming a star in general?
I don't think so. Yeah, you can become a star without being pay-per-view, for sure.
Anyone else?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, it is.
I mean, this kid looks good. Like this Spence Jr. is really a really good prospect.
Mhm.
He's really ready for a
He
step
got
up.
robbed twice. Managed to get robbed twice in the Olympics because they robbed him the first time, it overturned it, put him in the second fight, robbed him in that one too.
To be fair, though, I think that any business model which avoids pay-per-view is good, and if they can make them good fights, then that's always the question, isn't it? Can they get them in with decent opposition? As good as the 2 fights that De La Hoya's faffing himself over that he's been involved with, they are both on pay-per-view. So I don't think it's difficult to make a good fight when you've got pay-per-view money, and if they can get good fights for Thurman or Spence, maybe obviously against each other or a lot later down the road, then that can be done on CBS or it can be done on any of the channels they've got. I'm not sure if the point of the PBC model now is to feed them onto Showtime for pay-per-view fights, or whether it's about keeping it on the terrestrial channels. I'm not quite sure what their preference is. You'd have to think it'd be going towards Showtime because that's where they actually get paid, but it's a hard model to understand for certain.
But no, these guys are still also, they're not making pay-per-view money, but they're still making big money on the PBC. Like Guerrero getting paid $1 million for fucking Aaron Martinez.
Oh yeah, they're making huge money, but like I said, it's whether the end game is to get them back onto Showtime, because now Showtime have lost Mayweather. Showtime have no pay-per-view boxing, so you have to think that Espinoza and the slimy pricks are going to want something to replace that.
Okay. Next question comes in from McKetch. Steve, who's more shot, Matthew Macklin, Chris Avalos, or the Chelsea back 4 in midfield?
Chelsea are pretty badly shot.
They are
aren't they?
shocking now. They are absolutely fucking horrible.
Well, last year, whenever I saw Macklin losing to Highland in Dublin, I thought he was pretty shot. He looked like
Fight
he'd had
next
enough.
week actually as well. Highland, I noticed.
Oh, he's Highland, right? Okay. Well, Macklin seems to be fighting obviously at much, much lesser opposition, so he's probably shot. He's probably carrying, it's a bit smoke and mirrors with Macklin. I think he's had his day, and when he fights the lesser opposition, he can still keep going, the likes of the Wellborns, but he'll never step up again to world level, I don't think. But it's funny you should mention Chris Avalos, and I know I picked him beforehand, but I picked him off the back of Frampton, the Frampton performance being an exceptional performance for Frampton. But I tell you what, Avalos looks pretty shot. Now Valdez could also turn out to be this great fighter, but Avalos is definitely a gatekeeper, yardstick level now. He's going to be used as a gatekeeper for guys coming up, and he's not that old either. I think he's only about 25, 26, but he turned pro very early. He's been in a lot of hard fights. He always gives his all, but he was always a slow guy. I never realised how slow he was until I saw him in that Frampton fight. He really telegraphs his punches, and against Valdez he looked terrible. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say out the 3 of them, I think Avalos is pretty shot.
Fair enough. Dave, I'll go to you, mate, with this one. Chris Blackman's asking, who's your current favourite British fighter? Not how you hate us that much, that's so.
Carl the Cobra. Oh,
He's retired though, mate.
right. I'd say Anthony Joshua. I like the guy. I think he can. I think he can beat Vlad. Vlad's shit.
Well,
Joshua has a glass jaw. We know Vlad has a glass jaw, so he's got speed, he's got size, he's got strength. Let's see that fight. I think Joshua will knock him out.
there was a question in here actually from someone, if we just find it very briefly. I think it was George Reynolds. He says, apart from Vlad, is Joshua capable of beating everyone else at heavyweight right now?
Yes.
It's actually a good question. I mean, seriously, who right now would you comfortably pick to beat Anthony Joshua if he fought in December, for instance?
Confidently, but I would feel confident picking Klitschko.
Yeah, I would. I think Povetkin as well in his current form.
I think Povetkin's too short.
But
I think Wilder probably offers is the most interesting challenge. I think that just purely because of the size, the length of the arms, and when Wilder throws that jab, which it takes a lot of persuading to do it, but it is a real weapon. But I think he has certainly the capability to beat any of those guys. It's just whether the likes of a Povetkin can get him a few rounds, and that's why, like we talked earlier about the Tepper fight, because Tepper knows how to find the big guys and he knows how to land his shots. That's why that's such a good matchup.
I think Joshua would knock Wilder's head off his shoulders right now.
yeah, I think so as well. Wilder is so shit. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, right? See, I think it was Adam mentioned about White last night. He was open, especially down the middle. He went back in straight lines slightly. Now, if people see that with Dillian White, how the fuck have they not noticed it with fucking Wilder? Because Wilder is so sloppy, go back in straight lines, his guard is wide open for penetration. Joshua would erase him within 4 rounds. I'm confident of saying that.
What I think is funny is, as the fight gets nearer, I'm starting to see more people thinking Tyson Fury can beat Klitschko. But how many people on this panel right now think Fury could even beat Anthony Joshua right now?
I do.
Right, put it this way, okay, let me ask you this question. See if, just say that was, instead of Cunningham, it was Joshua, right? And that right hand that he landed, does Fury get back up?
No.
Exactly. I don't think Fury would get up.
Cornish quit, man. Cornish quit.
He didn't. He got hit.
I'm talking about Steve Cunningham. You see Steve Cunningham that dropped Tyson Fury with the right hand. If that had been Joshua dropping him with that same shot, does Fury come off his arse?
Yeah, but the difference is Joshua wouldn't have been caught with that shot. I don't think. He wouldn't have been caught square on standing
you're
like
lost
that.
what I'm saying is, I'm saying if it had been Joshua in place of Cunningham, and it'd be Cunningham punching Fury with that punch.
I don't know. Fury's got some, he's got some staying power. He can get himself back up. He's been hurt and caught with. I mean, people always talk about the Cunningham one, but when Pychik, I think he's pronounced his name, put him down, he put him down. Pychik put him down. He put him down really heavily, and Fury's got some, he's got some resilience about him. I think if Joshua fought him, I think he has the ability to get up once he's been hurt. I think that's going to be Fury's down coming against Klitschko, because I think he will just keep bobbing back up, and Klitschko will just hit him like a piñata for 12 rounds.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Alex, got a question in here from Darren Parsons. Should Barry Hearn be banned from talking in public? Is White a breath of fresh air for fighting with an injury?
Well, White wasn't not going to fight, was he? I mean, he had to fight. He wasn't going to. Apparently, he'd already. I think was it. Well, apparently the narrative now is that he demanded the extra 2 or 3 months to prepare against Joshua. So he had to fight tonight, and he was there obligated to really build up that. Stop fucking around with the mute button. Jesus Christ, you spastics.
Right, okay,
Andy keeps muting me.
No fucking bother, because you keep interrupting me, you cunt.
You don't ask me a question, you bitch.
Kurt keeps interrupting me.
It's because getting hair come off you.
I wish someone would interrupt me.
Hey, Alex, you calm down, mate. On you go.
What was I fucking saying?
I don't know.
Dillian White, he wasn't not going to fight. He had to fight. He was probably obligated to be there and hype up the shit show in December. Barry Hearn, I hope he fucking dies soon.
Oh, that's about too much, is it not?
I can't stand him.
Adam, is he fucked off now? Oh, there he is. He's come back. Right,
Leave
Adam.
him on mute when you ask him the question.
Right.
You clearly don't want to ask me a question about Joshua. I'm not allowed to talk about Joshua. No positivity.
You know why? You know why? Because you keep jumping in and you keep fucking up my train of thought. I hope you didn't go back to thinking what I was going to ask. The fucking question. I was going to ask Dave a question. You fucking jump in. I'm like, what fuck, man. Anyway, here's a question for you. Does George Groves losing last night make the Gale fight easier to make? That's from Paul Edwards.
No. Sure. But Kurt's going to keep muting me. No. It's a really short answer anyway. No.
No. Okay. He's fucking scared to give any more detail on that one. So I'll go to you, Paul.
Oh. What was the question? Sorry, I was muted, so I wasn't listening.
Oh, you're muted, buddy. It's Groves losing to the Gale. Does it make the fight easier to make?
No, De Gale now sees himself as a level above, and I don't think De Gale's going to be interested in that fight.
Okay.
Andy, I've got a question for the panel.
Uh-huh.
Does Groves it's similar to the last question? Does Groves losing last night mean that Aisha and Christine are going to stop going to Grove shows?
Well, we've not heard from Aisha for a while, actually. I think she's maybe in the huff with us. I don't know what the situation is. She's over in Vegas just now, but I would imagine she'll stick with him. I think she's quite a loyal girl. I think she'll stick with her man, I think.
I'm trying to get her back on side, though. I've offered to change my Twitter name to Free Gaza if she gets me a program.
Fucking hell.
Christina's tweeted out Team Groves for life after the loss, so she's still there. She's on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Right, what we're running at, I think we're running at almost 2 hours. So anyway, I think we've got one card on next week. It's any sort of relevance. I did say, I think Highland fights in Argentina next Saturday night, I think. But anyway, the Sweden's actually getting its first pro boxing card in over 40 years next week as well. Eric Scotland top on that bill. And obviously the fights from Liverpool, Stephen Smith will face off against Devis Boscerio of Italy. No, I think this is a WBC title eliminator, I think. Was this the winner of this faces off against Takahashi Miura?
There's the IBF. They've already
title.
they ducked the WBC one. Stephen Smith's had about 67 eliminated so far, trying to avoid the decent fighters in his division, and now they managed to find an eliminator that he might, do well in.
Well, I think it might be a decent enough fight, this, actually. I mean, I know Boscerio's in his mid-30s now. I know the Italians don't really give the guys a lot of backing for whatever reason, but, he's still got a good engine in him. He boxes pretty well. I think it'll be a decent enough fight. I think if Smith's going to have any success with it, he's going to have to take it to him. Maybe see some elements of boxing, but I think, I wouldn't want to discount Boscerio in any sort of way just now, actually. I mean, the guy's got experience. I don't think Smith's actually been in with anyone. I mean, I know the guy lost twice to Jacob, the guy from France, I think, but I don't really think Smith's resume is any real all that good. I mean, you think Buckland's probably his best win? That's about it. Maybe John Simpson, but those were kind of dodgy decisions.
Where's the fight taking place?
Liverpool, mate, Olympia.
Isn't Malinaggi supposed to be fighting in Italy this month?
No, I heard somewhere that he'd been okay to fight for the European title.
He's been saying that for years, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know. Have a wee look at it. But anyway, Steve, you want to take that one up, mate? Who do you fancy in this fight next week?
I'm going to say Stephen Smith because I have absolutely no idea who he's fighting, who this Italian guy is. And they've brought it to Liverpool, so Stephen Smith all the way for me.
Just on your question there, actually, Steve, I noticed that Malinaggi is actually slated on 26th of September in Lombardia in Milan, 6-rounder.
Yeah, it's something he's talked about for a while,
TBA.
isn't it? Taking out an EU licence or an Italian licence and all this, but he's never actually got around to it, so maybe he's going to be coming to a venue near you soon.
Also on the undercard, Scotty Cardle against Gary Buckland for the British lightweight title. Bradley Saunders against Reynold Garado, 14-11-1. Just let you chime in, guys, with your thoughts and final opinions and predictions for this card. Start with you, Kurt.
What card? This Sky card?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not bothering with it, shite.
Right, okay. Paul? Shite? Is he muted?
Well, it's the weakest of their lineup. They've put it in a tiny little venue in the Olympia because I think they know it is what it's filling a gap in the schedule, and it should give Stephen Smith a chance to get a decent win. Buckland's fighting Cardle, isn't he, on the undercard? That might be okay, but it's not the best. I mean, Buckland's always gives a good account of himself, and as much as everyone rips the piss out of Scotty Cardle, he's not bad. He's not great, but he's not terrible, and he'll give himself a good fight. So it'll be a short night view. We might actually get, though, 2 competitive fights after watching the 2 big fights from last night being very uncompetitive.
Dave, did you actually even give a fuck about this card?
Nope.
Do you want to pass an opinion? Nope.
Nope.
Have you still got your trilby on, mate?
What?
Your trilby, you still got it on?
No. That's not a trilby, that's a fedora.
Oh, fedora, sorry, mate.
I thought it was a
Indiana
trilby as
Jones.
well.
So did that, mate, so did that.
Get it right.
Alex.
Let's get it right. It's the 3rd week in a row of utter shit from Matchroom. The fact that Paul thinks this is the weakest lineup, it really makes me worried about how bad it's going to be, considering, just how bad the past 2 weeks have been. But whatever. Hope they both get knocked out. Hope Scotty Cardle gets knocked out.
Well, as I said, I really think the main event might be something decent, maybe. Adam, final word to you, mate. Sky card next week.
Yeah, it's not brilliant. It is finishing a gap so we can get a title shot. That'll be all right. Buckland's got no business up at the lightweight. Shouldn't be up there. And I'm going to defend last night. I know Alex has called it terrible, but it wasn't built up to be anything amazing. It was what it was, kind of thing. Local. There was some decent fights on the undercard. English titles, British titles. So I'll give him a pass on last night. But next week and last week, terrible.
Well, is that all there is next week? That shitty British card?
That's all there is. So we'll need to discuss. So I don't know if we could do the IV talk next week if you want.
2 hours of Mayweather's legacy.
Yep, we could do that as well. Maybe make it into 3 hours. So that being the case, I'd like to thank the panel. I'd like to thank Adam Smith, Alex Morris, David Loback, Paul Webb, Steve Wellens and Kurt Ward. I've been your host, Andy Patterson. This says we'll probably have a video out during the week, but if not, we'll certainly see you on Sunday. All the best. Cheers.